Today we're joined by a true innovator of violence, a guy who's very hardcore to the max, and also the head promoter of IWA Mid-South, Ian Rotten. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. I guess my very first question to you would be, were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Oh, I was a huge wrestling fan. Went to my first wrestling match in 1974. Old Baltimore Civic Center, and now whatever the hell it's called, from Baltimore Arena to, I think it's a Marine place or something.
Right. So you grew up in Baltimore then, right?
I grew up in Baltimore, and then when my parents divorced, my dad moved to Florida, and then in 1977 I got my first glimpse of Florida Championship Wrestling. So then
you actually went to the events or just
yeah,
watched it on TV?
No. My dad was a huge wrestling fan. My dad would tell me of days of Freddie Blassie and Pepper Gomez and Red Bastien in California and stuff, because my dad lived with my aunt, whose husband was a Air Force pilot. So during that time, he would help her take care of the kids. But out in California, you know, he would talk about Ray Crippler Stevens and all those guys that were out there in California and stuff. And then you know, every Tuesday night we'd go to the Fort Hesley Armory in Tampa, Florida, to watch NWA Championship Wrestling there. And that's like when I first got a glimpse of Dusty Rhodes, and
right.
You know, just that was my guy. You know, was American Dream, and you know, then we'd go to St. Petersburg to the Bayfront Center, where, to my recollection, is the first barbed wire match that ever took place between Terry Funk and Dusty Rhodes versus King Curtis IK and the Great Kabuki. So you know, I guess it's kind of funny how it turned out, because of, you know, Florida was a bloody violent territory. You know, it's just like I saw in one of the shoot interviews you did with Kevin Sullivan, you know, how he was talking about how that's somebody, I forget who it was. It was either Les Thornton. Yeah, because he was the man of 1,000 holes.
Right.
Les Thornton had a great match with somebody, and Kevin was like, "I just saw one of the greatest matches ever, Eddie." And Eddie said, "Yeah, it was great, but it won't sell us a ticket."
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so I was big into all the, you know, the blood and violence that was down there with, you know, Joe LeDuc and Bobby Jaggers, and, you know, of course Dusty, you know, and you know, Brody was down there a little bit, and I mean, I'll never forget, you know, I saw B. Brian Belair against Bruiser Brody in Pinfalls Can Anywhere in a Fort Hesley Armory, and it was just absolutely crazy. They went in the women's bathroom, women coming screaming out of the bathroom, and you know, you wouldn't figure you'd see it out of B. Brian Belair, but just blood galore, you know, and stuff like that. And you know, of course, I had best of both worlds, because you know, after my parents had divorced and stuff, my uncle would take me to the wrestling matches up here, you know, when I was a kid. So, you know, you had WWF, and then when the NWA came, and then they did that little thing with AWA with Pro Wrestling USA. You know, I was really getting to see it all.
Huh.
You know, and then
did they run down in Baltimore too, AWA? I know they did.
AWA and NWA did a little merger for a short period of time.
Right.
Like, I'll never forget, the Road Warriors one night just destroyed Lawler and Austin Idol.
Oh.
And you know, which is to the day, which I call the Road Warrior effect. When you have somebody that you really like to be a heel, but they just don't get over as a heel because the people like them because they see them beat up people. You know, I've always felt that me and Axel, you know, especially after we had our feud together when we came back together, you know, have had that Road Warrior effect, that people didn't really want to boo us because they knew we were tough guys, and they knew that, you know, we would get the shit kicked out of us and kick the shit out of somebody also. You know, not comparing us to the Road Warriors, but I mean, it's a, you know, an effect that I say that takes to a lot of people in the wrestling business. Like Vader, people don't want to boo Vader, you know, because one, they're scared to come over the railing and kick the shit out of him.
Right.
But, you know, two, he's a big, massive guy, you know, does some neat things and stuff like that, you know, and then, you know, he's always going to win. So you don't want to, you don't want to, you know, boo this guy that's a winner, you know. But yeah, I was a huge wrestling fan, and then, you know, when I was 12 years old, I met a guy came to wrestle for me in IWA Mid-South, childhood friend Mark Wolf, and he had satellite. So on Saturdays I'd go to his house early in the morning, and we'd watch Georgia Championship and Pacific Palisades and Portland and
Wow.
World Class and Lawler's Mid-South group, and we'd watch Florida Championship Wrestling, and we'd watch Continental, and we'd watch, I mean, we just watched wrestling all day while we'd sit at a table and sit there and play this dice game that I got at Apter's Pro Wrestling Illustrated, you know, but that's all we did. You know, when we played home run derby and stuff like in my backyard, we'd make our lineup out of wrestlers, you know, and I always liked the faces and he always liked the heels, so he always had a heel lineup and I had a babyface lineup. But I mean, like the cards that they sent you for the dice game and stuff, that wasn't good enough for us. We had to we had to cut out pieces of paper to the exact same size, and we'd be like, okay, this guy wrestles like this guy, so we'll give him his points, and and stuff like that. And my mother would go to work sometimes in the summertime, like 7 o'clock in the morning, and she'd come back, home from work at like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and me and Mark be sitting in the same position at my dining room table, sitting there playing that dice game, watching wrestling videotapes and stuff. So yeah, I was a huge wrestling fan, and a huge Dusty Rhodes fan. Matter of fact, when I was just at the Gathering last year, I walked up to Dusty and I was like, Dusty, why did you put on your DVD that you won your first world title in the Omni? And he was like, I did. I was like, no, you didn't. I was like, you beat Harley Race in the Fort Hesley Armory. And he was like, you know what? You're right. I can't change it. So, it's poignant out there that point blank that I was a huge mark. I mean,
Did you
hell,
play?
hell, if I wasn't, I probably wouldn't do half the shit that I've done to my body. But
Do you play sports at all in high school or no?
yeah, I played football, amateur wrestled, and played 1 season baseball. But then I hated the coach because he was a dick, so I just said the hell with it.
So, like, at what point did you say, all right, I got to get in the wrestling business?
Actually, I'll give you the whole scoop of it. I was working at a place called Homestyle Family Buffet, and me and Ramblin' Rich Myers worked there. And we were just talking about wrestling one day, and Rich said that he wrestled with a bunch of guys on the weekends, and they had this makeshift ring and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. Well, those guys happened to be like Mr. Hollywood Bob Starr and Dennis Whipwreck and this guy named Warhawk, Brian something, I can't remember his last name. But anyway, they had a little deal in a backyard back then in that days, and a guy that wrestled in MEWF and stuff, Steve Valentino and Bill Blake, we all wrestled together, and I'm going to go ahead and already tell you that my gimmick was Hades, God of the Underworld, and I came out with like a cloak on and stuff, and I mean, it was no Miami Brian, but it was a little gimmick, and Bill and Bill had gone down to hell, I can't think of his name. Not Dwayne Gill, but the other guy.
Barry Hardy.
Barry Hardy
Right.
was running the Monster Factory in Baltimore out of his garage, and they had gone down there and had like tape with him and stuff, and Axel and a whole bunch of other guys had already beaten the shit out of him and stuff, and they were trained to be pro wrestlers and stuff, and they had a tape of the backyard thing, and Axel said that guy's probably good enough to get trained, and it happened to be me, so then they convinced me to go down there and try it. And I went down there and got the living shit kicked out of me. And first night I was ever in a ring, AJ Fritzl German suplexed me off the top rope. I remember my toes touching and then the top of my head, and that was it. And I got the shit kicked out of me for about 3 classes in a row, and then after I kept coming back and buying Axel food, I finally they started teaching me things and stuff like that, and then really Funny thing, how I got my first match is, you guys remember the Cajun brawler Bubba Monroe?
Yeah.
Sputnik's son. He got in a fight at Bob's Big Boy, and the guy almost bit his thumb off, and he had to have his thumb surgically repaired. You know, and Axel called me up and he said, "You're wrestling on my show August 10th in Odenton now. Can you sell a couple tickets?" So I started training in like July. So with about 15 to 16 days training, and what I had known, you know, I wrestled Neil the Power Superior, God rest his soul, and you know. I had a pretty decent match. Worked the wrong side of the body the entire match, but you know, hey, you know, and thanks to Axel, I didn't go out there with my embarrassing singlet on the outside when it was supposed to be on the inside. But you know, Axel walked by me and goes, "The flowers go on the inside." So,
what was the hardest thing about training, and what do you remember about training with Axel?
Man, I got the shit kicked out of me. You know, I mean, and I still to this day think that's the way to be brought into business. You know, even though there's things like this that exist and stuff like that, and you know, you can just pay somebody $3,000-$4,000, whatever, to get in the wrestling business, and you know, schools are like, oh, you're just supposed to take their money and be happy that you're getting their money and just train them. You know, I think, you know, professional wrestling, you know, should still be looked at as, you know, a tough place to be. You know, and you got to be a tough guy. And
same ring. I get the same ring.
But you know, let me shut that off too. But you know, the toughest part was, you know, like after I got dropped on my head on a German suplex, I remember walking up to Axel to ask him for a ride to class. And you know, as I was walking up behind him, he was like, "That kid's never coming back." You know, and that was my thing. I just thought, as they were kicking the shit out of me, sooner or later they're going to stop kicking the shit out of me and they're going to teach me, and then I'm going to be a professional wrestler. You know, and I still think that's the way it should be. That's why, you know, very few people make it through my wrestling school. I'm not worried about the money. I'm worried about what your dedication is, what your heart is, because it's a hard business. You know, how many guys, you know, if you don't love it, you're not going to want to be in a car for 12 hours to make a show. You know, if you don't absolutely love it and think it's worth getting the shit kicked out of, you're not going to want to drive, you know, all that time, and then the promoter hands you $25-$30. You know, you don't want to pay dues. You don't want to put up a ring. You're not going to do those things unless you absolutely love the wrestling business. And if you get the shit kicked out of you and you work your way into the wrestling business, then you respect it more. I think, you know, the guys that, you know, come into business the way I do, you know, they respect it more. They understand it more as, you know, there was a day when, you know, this business wasn't looked upon as, you know, fake and phony and all that stuff, because the guys were willing to hit each other. You know, I mean, if you read Harley Race's book, or you read you know, Ric Flair's book, or any Freddie Blassie, those guys talk about beating the shit out of each other. You know, and yeah, I know, you know, then there's other people that's going to say, well, that's not working. Well, yeah, it is, because you're working to people and believing that, you know, you have actual hatred towards the other guy, even though you hit them kind of hard. You know, so I think if, you know, there's more guys brought into the business that way. My school has like a 90% dropout ratio. You know, Mickey Knuckles, when she was in my school, she dropped like 7 guys. You know, I mean, guys were like, I'm leaving because the girl's hitting me too hard. You know, I mean, they literally said that. Right. You know, so I mean, we called her TLC in school, tough little cunt. You know, because, you know, that's exactly what she was. You know, me and Hero would stretch her for an hour. You know, just tagging in and out and just stretch her and stretch her and stretch her.
That thing she did with the chair, was that like her first match?
That was her first match.
That's the craziest thing I ever saw.
When she got bumped on her head like that, was her first match.
Like, my God.
And the first thing out of her mouth when she got in the dressing room is she puts her arms around me.
That's good, man.
She puts her arms around me, and well, we both had goofy promoters calling us because that was Matt Ritter. But you know, she puts her arms around me and she says, "I want to thank you for all those neck bridges, and I want to thank you for all those neck exercises, because if not, my neck would have probably been broke." You know, and you know, I think that's the way you should be brought in the wrestling business. It shouldn't be, you know, okay, because you handed me $3,000, I'm supposed to be, you know, nice to you, and I'm supposed to be light on you, you know, and not make you work to get into something that I love, you know, and you know, I think there'd be a lot more. One of the things that pisses me off more is when a new kid comes into business and, you know, just doesn't think that they should pay dues, you know, or, you know,
I agree.
they think that, you know, because
Since they paid everything,
they
should be
paid
handed
everything,
to them.
yeah, everything should be handed to them,
Mm.
you know, and that's not the case. I used to drive with Axel to Tricky Dick Karakoff shows, and I would pay half gas and hotel, and I wasn't even booked on the show, you know, and that was just for the opportunity to go, hi, you know, Axel Rotten trained me, I'm here, I have my bag. If somebody doesn't show up, I'd be more than happy to work and show you what I can do, you know, and you know, and even at like times when I didn't, you know, work, like I would come what we call in the South a gimmick girl. I would sell the gimmicks for the boys,
Right.
you know, and like Rick Rude came in one time and he gave me so much money from paying for selling his pictures to pay me. He paid me for selling his pictures. He gave me so much money that, you know, I paid for all 3 days of room and gas, you know, that weekend, because I made more off of Rick Rude's generosity than Axel did in a payday.
Right.
You know, so but you know, my goal was always, you know, to show as much respect to my trainer as I could, because I was trained for free. You know, in a sense, in the long run, it'd probably been much cheaper for me to pay a fee than feed Axel 3 times a day. You know, but the amount of knowledge that I learned also from being with him 3 times a day. You know, you don't have to be in a ring to be trained.
Right.
You know, and the amount of knowledge that I learned from being with him, you know, all the time. You know, I mean, people don't realize, you know, we lived together in Memphis, we lived together in Dallas. You know, I mean, and when we were in Maryland, you know, we were constantly together for 3 years. It was hard to see him without seeing me. You know, and you know, you can get a lot of knowledge dropped on you, you know, then.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and one of the best things, you know, that and I'm not kissing his ass because he's here, but it's true. One of the best things Axel ever did for me, when we got to Global, it was the very first weekend. I mean, very first week we got to Global. He said to me, I've taught you as much as I can. There's a lot of guys here that you can learn from. I would suggest Black Bart. He's made money in this business for 20 years. Why don't you see if you can sit down next to him, listen to him put his matches together and stuff like that, and see if you can, you know, learn from him, because I've taken you as far as I can. And I walked over to Bart and I said, you know, do you mind teaching me the business? You know, I said, I'd like to learn it from you. You know, and I said the same thing he said. You know, you made money for 20 years, you know, I'd like to learn from you. And he said, well, pull up a chair there, Jan. And, I'll teach you. So I pulled up a chair, and first thing out of his mouth, I know you guys are going to find this hard to believe. First thing out of his mouth, he says, you know how to make a blade? I said, no, Axel always makes mine for me if I need it. He said, well, I'm going to teach you that, because the first thing I'm going to teach you here is how to make a blade, and red turns to green. Promoter wants you to bleed, you get paid more money. And I said, okay. You know, but that was like the first thing out of his mouth. But, you know, a lot of guys that bring guys into business would like to not let you go, you know, so you know, so they can make you do what they want you to do. But Axel cared enough about me to say, hey, I've taken you this far, and, you know, this is where you can go to learn more.
You actually had a Johnny Lawler character.
Yes, that was my first gimmick, yeah.
Whose idea was that? Just
really, at the time, I had like the short hair like Lawler,
right,
and stuff, and the goatee, and I was a Lawler mark until I went to work for him, and then you know, I kind of looked like him. You know, I wasn't. You know, when I got in the wrestling business, I was like 228 pounds. You know, I knew his mannerisms and stuff like that, so. It was kind of a thing we roll with. We rolled with the gimmick that my mom was a rat, and you know, And in mortal words of Sabu, all women are rats except for my mother, and she used to be one. So, you know, we did a deal. My mother was a rat, and I was an illegitimate child of Jerry Lawler and stuff like that. I came out to John Anderson's Black Sheep of the Family, and you know, stuff like that. And yeah, you know, so it was pretty much a combination between me and Axel. And then when Lawler found out about it through Dennis Carluzza, some heat was coming down, and then Axel was like, I think we ought to change your name.
Is that when you changed it to Ian?
No, I changed it. We came up with a gimmick where I was a. I lost the match to Axel where the loser had to retire. So we retired Johnny Lawler, and I came out wearing a hockey mask and doing a gimmick called Zach Blades.
Okay, yeah.
And actually, it was Zach Blades and Axel Rotten that were going to go to Portland. We were going to drive from Baltimore to Portland. That's dues, baby. That's dues. We were going to do that, and Steve Dahl called Axel and told him that they had lost TV. He thought it wasn't a good idea to come all the way out there. And of course, that was the beginning of the downfall of Portland.
Right.
So Axel was like, you know, I had like let my apartment go and everything, you know. And Axel was like, well, if you still want to go somewhere, maybe we can, you know, call up Akbar and go to Texas. And I was like, well, you know, whatever. He goes, I got this idea, and see if you're willing to do it. And then he was like, you know, we can do a gimmick where, you know, we're brothers. That idea works with promoters a lot more than, you know, putting two guys together that, you know, don't have similar gimmicks, stuff like that. So we called Akbar, and, you know, he was like, sure, come on down, baby, you know. Axel pitched the idea to him and stuff that, you know, I had left Newcastle with my dad and went to America while he stayed in England with Mom, because I couldn't speak a British accent worth a shit. And, you know, so we had it all figured out where we could actually tell a reasonable storyline of how we got together. And then we met, you know, back in America. The first time we ever teamed, I was wearing Axel's tights, because I didn't have no rotten gear or anything like that, other than we went to Hoshel's Value City and bought a leather jacket for $300, and then Axel desecrated it with spray paint and ripping it and pins and everything else, you know, to do the punk gimmick. And you know, we went to Global, and you know, Global was the opportunity that, you know, I had to work 6 days a week. You know, was the first time that I worked 28 days in a month. You know, which I just thought it was great. You know, it was the best thing in the world. You know, but yeah, Global was actually the first time that, you know, we had tagged as Axel and Ian Rotten. And the funny backstory about that is, when I first started training with Axel, I asked him, you know, if he does tag matches. And, you know, and of course he's being my trainer. He's like, nah, there's really nobody good enough to tag with me, you know, and stuff like that. So when he asked me to tag with him, I was like, man, I'm good. You know, I'm good enough to tag with him. You know, and then we had actually got to Dallas. We're in our apartment, and I was like, man, I really want to thank you for, you know, thinking that I'm good enough to tag with you. And he was like, no, that's not it, really. He's like, you know, I used to be a massage therapist before I got in the wrestling business, and he was like, I figured if I messed up anything, you could fix it, and it'd be a lot easier. And it was just, you know, my ego just went, you know, down the drain.
Who did you ride with at Global besides Axel?
A guy named Dave the Wave McAllister. He got a couple stints in there as a ref, but other than that, that was, you know, that was about it.
Any good road stories from that time?
You know, the funny thing is, with Global, is after Axel left, they started using me as a singles wrestler and flying me around and stuff like that. We'd go to Mission, Texas once a month, and once a week, and you know, we fly in Southwest Airlines at the time. It was like $25, you know, to get on. And after Kerry had died, they started putting Kevin in his spot. And we're on a plane going to Mission, and Akbar asked me, he said, Ian, baby, I got a big favor to ask you. Can you please babysit Kevin? And I was like, why do you got to babysit Kevin? You know, at this point I'm very naive. You know, it's like 1992. You know, and next thing I know, we land in Houston, which is just a brief stop to pick up some more people on the plane. Kevin gets up out of his seat and walks off the plane. You know, and so Akbar's like, "Go get him." So I run out there, and I mean, we're right at the beginning of the jetway, and I'm like, "Kevin." He's like, "What?" I was like, "This ain't the airport." And he's like, "Well, where are we at?" I was like, "Houston." He goes, "Oh yeah, this place does look familiar." You know, and I was like, "Yeah, that be real good if we could get back on the plane before they like won another ticket or something, you know." Right. And so we go walking back on the plane and stuff, and so I sit down next to Kevin, and we're talking about old world class days and stuff, and he's like, "Man, you're real knowledgeable about that stuff," and I was like, "Yeah, I used to watch it every week," and we're talking and stuff, and he goes, "Well, when we get to the hotel, you want to smoke a joint?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure," And I really wasn't as big as pot smoker as I am now,
right.
But I was like, smoking a joint with Kevin Von Erich, that's kind of cool,
yeah.
Right. It's kind of mark out moment, And so I go and drop my bags off at the hotel, and I come back to his room, and I knock on the door, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing? Come on in and stuff." And so, yeah, Axel had always told me all the stories, and stuff, about you got to watch out for this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, and all this shit. And I was like, okay, So next thing I know, I'm standing there in front of Kevin Von Erich in Kevin Von Erich's hotel room, and he pulls down his pants. And I'm thinking, oh man, what the hell, And he turns around, and he's got, shit strapped to him. all down his legs. He's got a little pouch of weed here, and he's got some pain pills over here, and he's got some Quaaludes here. And stuff like that. Awesome. And I'm like,
the walking pharmacy.
Yeah. But at first I'm thinking, oh no, this guy's gonna think I'm some young boy. But really. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on the road in Dallas, Most of the shots were close, but one of the better stories that was just pointed out to me is we had a day off actually, and Bobby Duncombe had just came to Global. And was rooming with Bradshaw, John Hawk, whatever the hell you want to call him.
Right.
And tagging with him the Texas Mustangs. And we had this kid sent down from Brad Ringen's school. We called him Chad Starr because he had red hair and had a big bush like Bob. And Bobby came over and he was like, let's go to a bar. We were like, okay, where do we want to go? And he's like, let's go to Borrow Money. And Chad Starr goes, well, my brother, if you need money, I'll lend you money. And he goes, we're going to Borrow Money. He goes, no, if you need money, my brother, I will lend you money. And Bobby goes, you dumbass, the name of the place is called Borrowed Money. So it winds up being that just me and Bobby and this guy Chad Starr goes. Axel chose to stay home that night, and then Chad Starr left early because we started drinking heavily because we ran into Samu and Mr. Perfect in the bar, and which is one of the coolest moments of my life because Curt Hennig walked up and introduced himself to me at that point. So I was like, wow, that's really cool because Global was on TV every day then.
Right. 4 o'clock on
on ESPN. And he was like, he walks up to me and says, hey, you're Ian Rotten. I'm Curt Hennig. And I was like, I know that. So I mean, Curt, buys a ton of Jack Daniel's shots, and me and Samu and Bobby are drinking them down left and right. And I'm just getting hammered. And Curt's showing me that, in the old days on the road, so there was no backwash. They just poured the Jack Daniels in their mouth and would gargle, so that you knew that you weren't putting nothing back into the bottle. And so we're gargling shots of Jack Daniels one after another, and we go to leave the place drunker than Cooter Brown. That's a Kentucky expression. And we get in the elevator, and the door's closing, and this guy sticks his arm in the door. And the door reopens back up, and he goes, "Hey," and this guy's drunk as shit too. He goes, "I know you guys." He goes, "You're one of them bad breed guys."
Huh.
And he goes, "And you're Bobby Duncombe." And he goes, "You're one of them head shrinkers." And he looks at Kurt Hennig and he goes, "And I know you too. You're the California stud, Rugged Rod Price." And at this point, I step up to the guy. I'm like, "You dumbass, that's Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig." You know? And the guy gets offended because I've called him a dumbass, and he like steps towards us.
Oh, no.
And Samu tells him to step back because, you know, he could save his life and his hat, and he could use a new hat.
Right.
And the guy's like, "Fuck you. You know, I'll kick all your phony wrestlers' ass," and all this stuff.
Boy.
And right at that point, he takes another step, and Bobby Duncombe bitch slaps this guy. right across the eye and the top of the cheekbone. The guy goes flying out the elevator door, and at this point, the door closes and the elevator's going down. That's how big this bar is.
Right.
And it's going down to the first floor, and at that point, I go, "I know how that guy knew who we were." And Bobby's like, "How?" I was like, "He does security over there at Big D Championship Wrestling in Mesquite. He's an off-duty cop." So the next morning, I'm doing damage control, you know, calling the Mesquite, you know, police department, telling them that one of their officers attacked us,
Right.
you know, and he's like, "We already heard about it." He told us that he was drunker than shit, tried to step to a bunch of wrestlers and got punched. I said, "No, he got slapped," you know, but...
Now, Cactus was down there at the time, right, too?
No,
McFoley? He was already on.
Yeah, Cactus was gone.
What about Foley? Or, not Foley, Scotty, Raven.
No, Scotty was gone too.
Okay.
We had Booker T and Stevie Ray, which was me and Axel's first match in Global. We had, I think his name in WWF was like Pug or something, Alex Portel.
Oh, yeah.
Remember he did the little
Yeah.
shoot gimmick deal. We had this guy Calvin Knapp, Hawk, and John Hawk with Bradshaw, Bobby Duncombe Jr. And then Big D was real cool to work for, where we worked for on Sundays, because we also got a pretty decent payday out of it, because over there was like John Tatum, Chris Adams, Iceman King Parsons, Action Jackson,
Right.
Bill Irwin, you know, was that crew. So, you know, we got to work with them some too. Eric Embry's final match was out that, you know, way in Big D, you know. So I mean, we you know, I had the opportunity to work a lot of good workers. You know, you got to do stuff with Kerry Von Erich and, you know, Kevin Von Erich and Chris Adams, even though he was drunk most of the time. You know, a lot of people shit on Chris about, you know, he was tight on his paydays and all that stuff, and but, you know, he always took real good care of me as far as when we went to work for, because he was calling his Fed world class.
Right.
And when I went to work for him, and, you know, after Axel left Global and went back to Maryland, I stayed a couple months extra, and you know, he was giving me, you know, better payoffs than my guarantee. You know, when he had good houses and stuff like that, and you know, only thing I could say about him is I didn't like the fact that he got in the ring sometimes messed up. One time he kicked me with a super kick in the ear. Man, we went to the titty bar after the show, and all I could hear was boom. I wasn't hearing no music or nothing. I mean, it was just, you know, just ridiculous how bad I couldn't get anything but that ringing in my head, and I went off on him about it, and, you know, after that he never got in the ring with me drunk. He got in the ring with other people, but he never got in the ring with me drunk. You know.
Would you say Axel was always the captain of the team back then? Or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I'd you know, I would say 9 out of 10 times I didn't make a move without him calling it from the ring apron. You know, he knew what I did good. You know, I mean, you know, as far as offense was concerned, you know, I always took, you know, the babyface shine.
Right.
You know, but you know, I do that with so many guys now. You know, I stand on the apron and call the match from there. You know, it's just the way I learned. You know, yeah, he was definitely, you know, captain of the team, you know, and you know, I really think, it might not be the appropriate time for it, but I really think if a lot of people wouldn't have fed Axel's ego at the time, that we could have stayed together as a very good team, and probably, you know, made some money, you know, because every team has the guy that does all this stuff and then has the charisma, you know, and Axel was definitely the charisma of the team, you know. And I was more willing to take, you know, some bumps that he wasn't willing to take,
right,
and stuff like that, and I accepted that as my part and had no problem with it. You know, people used to always fuck with me all the time. They try to piss me off, especially the headbangers, Glenn and Chaz. They would try so bad to piss me off by calling me Axel. They didn't realize that was a compliment to me. You know,
right.
I mean, that didn't bother me at all. You know, I think if you know, some, you know, like I said, if some people wouldn't have fed some shit into Axel's head, you know, that, you know, we could have been just as, you know, big or better as, you know, Knobs and Sags and, you know, so on and so on, because we had some good shit, you know. I mean, when Terry Funk and Cactus Jack go to bat for you to go to Japan,
Right.
you're doing something right, you know.
Let's talk about Memphis. How did you guys wind up there?
Memphis, you guys might remember this because you were strongly around. Remember when ECW ran Valley Forge, Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
We were Funk's Few Good Men at the time. And instead of using us on Funk's team in that cage match deal, they used Kevin Sullivan, Taz, and somebody.
Right.
And me and Axel were highly upset about it. We felt that it was Paul Lee saying, you know, you're not good enough to do this. You know, when it made every bit of sense, you know, when every story is said, if Terry Funk tells me to jump off the top rope to the concrete to the floor head first, I'm going to do it. Okay, so why with this big match coming up would we not be there for him? You know, and I got in an argument with Paul Lee over the phone, and in Global we met a guy named Freddie Fargo, who was a manager, and when the call was made to Memphis, we told him, you know, we have this guy that can manage us, Freddie Fargo. Well, Lawler saw dollar signs, Jackie Fargo, Freddie Fargo, you know, type deal. And so we were considering it at the time, you know, because we felt, even though we were Terry Funk and we were Funk's Few Good Men, we felt that Paulie didn't want to use us, you know, in an aspect that, you know, we could really bust our ass in, you know. And, you know, I got in a nasty argument with Paulie. I brought up Paulie embezzling money from WCW, and he got hotter than shit over that. And, you know, Bill Watts ruined my life. I was 26 years old on top of the world.
Was this on the phone one?
Yeah, this is on the phone. Yeah, he's beyond pissed off. He's put Arn Anderson on hold, yelling at me and stuff. And, you know, he said, you know, you don't realize the important position you have with this company with being Funk's Few Good Men. And I said, no, you don't realize. You know, it was really back then, man. I'd have took any bump. I'd have done anything. You know, I could have. You know, I was the guy that every time Paulie climbed them steps at the ECW arena and was talking about pay-per-view and this and that, I was actually the guy going, yeah, I was buying it hook, line, and sinker. You know, and of course I know eventually he got to it, but I mean he was talking this shit in '93.
Right.
You know, but I mean I was the guy buying that hook, line, and sinker. I was the guy, you know, going down to Florida before the shows and staying with my dad and putting out 15,000 flyers in Orlando and 15,000 flyers in Tampa and driving down to Fort Lauderdale and putting 15,000 flyers out there for them to be able to draw a nice house in the War Memorial. You know, I was the guy going up to, you know, Wildwood, New Jersey and stuff like that and handing out flyers on the, you know, I wasn't too proud to do that. You know, other guys were like, that's bullshit. You know, Paulie wants us to go out and hand flyers out on the boardwalk. You know, I didn't care.
Right.
You know, I just wanted the company to succeed. I ate, slept, and breathed it, you know. So we got in a big fight, and I said, you know, fuck it, we quit. I quit for Axel too at the time, and which at that time we thought we were very much right. And you know, when I called him and told him, I said, I just quit for the both of us. You know, his exact words were, well, we better get in Memphis. You know, I called Freddie Fargo. He called Burt Prentice. Next thing you know, we were on Axel and Ian Rotten World Tour, because we had to go down to Florida because we had a bunch of dates for David Sierra, the Cuban assassin.
Right.
And we told him, we said, we're going to Memphis. You know, we can't make it. And he was like, man, we got this one show that we've got a big advance for, you know, advertising you guys as ECW guys and stuff like that. You know, can you please, you know, at least make this one shot? And it was so funny because after we did the match, because he told us to go out there and do ECW shit, and we broke tables and walls and all kinds of stuff. Afterwards, he was like, well, I'd like to thank the Rottens for coming in. Thank God they're leaving, you know. But, you know, they just did what, you know, I asked them to do, you know. And we drove from right outside of Tampa, Florida, Davie, Florida, to Dallas, where we did another show for Big D, picked up a little payday, because, you know, going to Memphis, you need as much money as you can get. You know, we picked up a good payday there, and then we picked up Freddie. We wrestled Friday night. Went Saturday night. We went to TV, and I mean, for Saturday morning we went to TV. Then you do the Mid-South Coliseum, and then you're not on the loop for a week because you're not on TV. So then we drove back to Dallas, did another thing at Big D, and you know, then we went back to Memphis, and once we were in the loop, was running, and then 2 weeks in, Freddie Fargo couldn't take me and Axel teasing him all the time and quit.
You guys,
because he blew his first spot, his very first spot on TV, he blew. You know, and we just couldn't believe it. You know, it was a simple, you know, I go for the Oklahoma saddle roll, he throws the powder in the guy's face. I mean, the guy goes for the Oklahoma saddle roll, I duck, he throws the powder in the guy's face. I roll him up, 1, 2, 3.
right.
He blew it. You know, it wasn't there, you know. And so we teased them about it, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
Members of the Eliminators from back then.
Huh?
The Eliminators, Cronus and
I always thought John was a good guy. I thought Perry was a dick right from the very beginning. You know, John was, you know, just, you know, a doty-do, you know, type of guy. You know, he went with the flow of anything.
Right, right.
You know, Perry was pretty bitter because he thought he didn't have a job in WWF at the time because of his size. You know, and he was always bitching about it and moaning and groaning about it. And I mean, traveling with them, just, I mean, me and Axel would sit in the back seat and just laugh. Because, I mean, you know, it'd be like, fuck you, Pouty, I'm parking the car here, you know, and shit, you know. And it's just, you know, we just would sit there and just laugh at him because we got heat because we used to travel with the Headbangers, but they, you know, they were the Spiders at the time and they were baby faces. But we'd get dropped off 2 blocks before the building. We'd be walking down the street with our bags and stuff, you know, because we got along with those guys a lot better. And you know, but you know, in Memphis, you got to do everything you can to save a dime, you know, and you know, I always thought they were a real good tag team,
right?
You know, and did some neat shit, you know. But Perry always seemed like, you know, he had a chip on his shoulder, you know. So,
any other good memories from the Memphis territory?
Oh, Memphis was a blast, especially with Glenn and Chaz. I mean, we just did stupid things. We'd go into Denny's and put 4 stink bombs underneath the table legs, and we'd get up to go to pay the check and push against the table so the stink bombs would break. And then the 4 of us would sit outside the window and watch people walking by going, you know, Axel one time hit this guy. We were going down the road and a guy on a bicycle was coming this way, and Glenn was driving, Axel was in the passenger seat, and Axel threw a water balloon out the window, hit this guy dead in the face, and you see the guy on the bike go, I mean, just rolling down the road. And then me and Axel are going down the same road a couple weeks later, and you see the guy on his bike with 2 casts on his arms steering like this. I mean, we used to have signs that we'd show to truckers that says "You fuck goats," and one time me and Axel had a little blue Tempo back then. Me and Axel almost got ran over by this tractor trailer because I had his sign that said "You blow goats," and then I flipped it over and it said "End sheep." And this dude just got pissed off at us and tried to run us over.
It happened to us too with the walkie-talkie.
We would fuck with the
whole
on
turnpike
ECW
from
Road.
Harrisburg to Pittsburgh. They're like, we found it was like a red car. Look for the antenna. And as we were getting off, the trucker got us off, and we did the on-ramp and everything. What are you saying? Like, truckers need soap or something? And
where they hide money from truck drivers under the soap bar and shit like that.
And we, of course, we had the conventional, show your tits, and
Right.
we had signs that said "My underwear is on fire," and "Will you marry me?" That of course we would show that to the guys,
Right.
and we just we went down on Beale Street one night, and these guys started fucking with us, and Chaz starts cutting a promo on this guy about how he's going to kick the shit out of him and all this other stuff. And the four of us are standing there, and at the time Axel's like 350, I'm like 330. Glenn, Chaz, pretty big guys, and there's like 6 or 7 of these guys at this point, and the first thing we were told when we got in town, if we didn't want to get in trouble, don't go to Beale Street. So of course that's the first thing we do, and this guy, the one guy of this group is running his mouth, and as he's sitting there running his mouth, his buddies are like, and they all walk away. So now the 7-on-4 advantage goes to 4-on-1, and I mean the guy's just shooting off his mouth, and Chaz is like, dude, you better turn around, and the guy like turns around, looks at both sides, and sees his friends are gone. And I mean, it was just like something out of a cartoon. It was like, it was like he was gone, And then we would, this is something out of the first shoot interview you did with Axel. How he told you that the Headbangers said that I got on their nerves. Well, the reason why I got on their nerves was because he's an instigator.
Nah.
Me and him used to have to sleep in this queen-size sofa bed. Right? Now, mind you, I just told you, 350, 330. That's a lot of weight in a sofa bed.
Right.
But Glenn and Chaz had a room also that we stayed in this little itty-bitty apartment. And he'd nudge me. Fuck with that. So I'd be like, Glenn? Yeah, Ian. You got a little girl, right? Yeah. So tell me, why is the sky blue? And he'd be like, I don't know. And I'd wait a little bit. Chaz, why do zebras have stripes? And I would just keep him up like 2 and 3 hours at a time doing that. And he would instigate it the whole time,
Right.
But, they'd always be like going to him, oh, you better stop, you're going to have to pay his share of the rent because we're kicking him out, and stuff like that. And, 9 times out of 10, anything I did was instigated by him, I mean, just like, when we were going to Chris's show, the Candido show in New York, I mean, having me yell at people out the window and, and stuff like that in Brooklyn, I mean,
You have to do stuff like that to keep you sane.
yeah,
when you're in a car
especially,
for like
especially when
8
you're
hours.
in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
But Memphis, was a very good time, man. Billy Joe Travis, God rest his soul, I think he's one of the most underrated workers ever. He had some serious demon problems, boy, and we used to stay at this place called the Admiral Bimbo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had them in Jacksonville, and Dreamer we were going to stay there. He goes, "That's the Memphis Hotel."
Oh.
And everybody would stay on the whole.
And, I mean,
This is terrible.
you'd go to lay down, the sheets would still be like kind of moist from the mildew and stuff in the room, and Billy was all fucked up one night, and he had, there's no other way to say it, he had a huge dick, and he one night's all fucked up at the Admiral Bimbo, we're on the 2nd floor, and he just pulls his dick out and throws it over the railing, and all of a sudden you hear this black guy yelling, "Hey, hey, hey, hey!" You know, and Billy's pissing all over him.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he looks, and the guy looks up, and Billy, after the pee stops, Billy still hasn't pulled his dick in, and the guy goes, "Man, I'm black, and that's a big dick." I mean, and I'm just expecting the cops to be called and all that stuff, and Billy's hiding shit underneath the mattress, and I mean, crazy stuff happened at that hotel.
How did you hear about ECW when you first got there? How did you get in?
You know, Axel had that little brief run in WCW.
Right.
When he was there, Paul Lee was there. Paul Lee liked Axel. I guess at the time liked me personality-wise. And I started running shows under the old banner of what he ran shows as Atlantic States Wrestling Alliance. And I ran a show at the Parkville Armory, which drew real nice, and Paul Lee was in. And but before that, you know, to get Paul Lee at the show, I had been talking to him. And you know, I kept asking him for Eddie Gilbert's number. You know, and he said, "Well, you know, trust me, Ian. Some things are about to go down there, you know, and there's going to be a different booker." And I was like, "Well, give me that guy's number."
Huh.
You know, and he's like, "Well, I'm not at liberty to say right now who the new booker is going to be." You know, and I was like, "Well, could you put in a good word? You know, whoever it is, you know, we'd really like to work there." You know, and Paulie's like, "Oh yeah, trust me, who it's going to be, they already like you."
Huh.
You know, and so the next night was the Ultra Clash '93.
Right.
And Axel had hurt his back in our match the night before. And Paulie asked him if he would tag with Jason Knight to work Public Enemy. And Axel's like, you know, my back's hurting, you know, why don't you just let Ian do it? And Paulie's like, yeah, you know, that's fine if he wants to do it, you know. And, you know, so literally 10 minutes before bell time, you know, and that's the opener, Paulie asked me to get dressed. And, you know, I went dumb. I said, you know, what's in it for us?
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, well, I'm taking over here, you know, I'm going to give you guys a job. And so that's what's really funny, because I told Eddie Gilbert about that later on. I was like, he knew he was taking your spot.
Yeah.
You know, he knew he was taking your
Yeah.
spot, you know. And Eddie's like, you know, it don't surprise me. He learned everything he learned from me, and that's something I would do. You know.
What did Doug Gilbert do in the back? Didn't he go after someone?
Oh,
at the
he
back?
went crazy. Yeah, he went
nuts.
crazy. He started. When Eddie did something in the ring, I'm not.
He was at the gimmick table.
Yeah,
and Eddie,
selling his boots or something.
He came down during the match he was supposed to be in with Sullivan, Abbey, and
Yeah.
all them. And then like Gilbert had the
Yeah,
scaffold match.
Yeah, you know the story better than I do.
I remember that.
You know, but in the back wise though, I was like underneath tables and shit because Doug was like hitting the punch bowl and bananas were flying.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like Cornette would have loved it. And then you know, I mean, shit was just going all over the place. You know, and because they were supposed to have. If you remember that night, they were supposed to have the first barbed wire bat match that night.
Yeah, and they said the commission wasn't allowed to have the barbed wire, but nobody bought the barbed wire.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what went down actually.
Right.
And yeah, Doug just went absolutely nuts in the back. I went out there, literally going in the ring, putting a blade on my finger. You know, I mean, Paulie was like, you know, can you juice and stuff? We really want to get these guys over and all this stuff, you know. And, you know, I took a double tombstone pile driver, then the drive-by, and, you know, basically got jobbed. You know, but, you know, in immortal words of Paul Heyman, you'll have a job for life. But, you know, that was basically really the start of the ECW stuff.
What are your thoughts on Chad Austin?
Funny dude. I mean, really funny guy. I mean, I took him on the Ian Rotten World Tour working for Burt Prentice because after I was in USWA, of course, that's where I met my wife, and so I would go back there to see her, and her and Bert were best girlfriends, and you know, I would go back to see her, and she would just drive me to Bert's shows and stuff like that, and sell gimmicks and whatever. And so I took Chad with me a couple times, and it was just some funny shit, you know. You know, he was good enough that, you know, I really thought, you know, that Paulie could have done more with him than what he did, you know. But you know, Chad's best thing he had going for him was he was funny as hell. He could have done some great comedy stuff. I mean, great comedy stuff. I mean, the whole Chad Booth thing when we brought him out during the Funk, that was his idea. You know, he was like, "Why don't you dress me up as Sabu and beat me up?" You know, and you know, he's just, you know, funny kid. You know, and you know, I really thought he could have done more. You know, it was me and Axel that suggested that, you know, Paulie use him.
Right.
You know.
What about not Public Enemy, Bad Company? Memories of some of your matches with those guys?
We only had a couple. Pat Tanaka was a real good guy. I later used Paul Diamond in IWA when I first started IWA. You know, one of the things. Remember the debacle of the exploding cage?
Yeah, Todd Gordon.
Yeah. Paul was supposed to get juice off of that, and so the whole time they're going over it, he's sitting there, you know, making his blade and stuff, and you know, as soon as Paulie and Todd walk away, he just drops it in his bag, you know, and that kind of pissed me off, you know, and when they got back from the match, and Paulie's like, "Where's your juice, Paul?" He was like, I don't know, the smoke and stuff. I lost my blade. I was like, "Yeah, it's right there." You know, you know, it just seemed like, to me, you know, Pat always wanted to work hard, but Paul didn't. You know, really just didn't want to work, you know, all that hard. Right. You know, he didn't like the violent aspect that ECW had then. You know, which, you know, that was our niche. You know, so.
Did you feel that ECW was just another indie?
No. Oh, hell no.
Okay.
I thought I had landed a job, even though, you know, I wasn't making a whole lot of money. You know, I'm telling you, I was the guy buying it hook, line, and sinker every time he went up them steps. You know, I mean, I bought the speeches he gave to me on the phone, how I was going to drive fast cars and have big houses and, you know, everything else. You know, and I mean, I knew it had huge potential. I mean, as a wrestling fan, I'd look around the fucking dressing room, and there was Kevin Sullivan and Abdullah the Butcher and, you know, Cactus Jack and, you know, Shane Douglas, and, you know, later on there was Dean Malenko and the most underrated worker of all time, Too Cold Scorpio, and, you know, Benoit and Guerrero and, you know, the Steiner brothers, and, you know, I mean, this place, you know, had every opportunity in the world just to explode.
What were your thoughts on that?
And then it had. Well, let me continue to elaborate. No. Then it had young guys like me and Tommy and Taz, you know, and Sabu just breaking out all over the place, you know, and you know, Axel. And I mean, we had young guys, JT Smith, you know, Mike Awesome, you know. I mean, there was guys there who were willing to do anything Paulie told us, you know. I mean, anything, you know. We'd have jumped off the highest thing. We would have fucking cut to the deepest vein. We'd have done anything that was asked of us, you know. And Paulie gave us the freedom that the first match, you know, if the last match couldn't be as good as the first match, then you didn't need to be the last match, you know. And until later on, I never realized and understood as much as I do now. But, you know, me and Axel were always that match before intermission, you know, and, you know, that's what sent people to buy their tickets for the next month, you know, and I never realized that was that important role until then, but, you know, now I do. And, I mean, everybody always said Paulie was a genius and all that stuff. Paulie was a genius for being smart enough to rip off everything he ever learned from Eddie Gilbert. You know, I mean, Paulie's biggest problem was, you know, when he got a good idea, he never gave that person credit. You know, the night the lights went out in the arena, that was Axel's idea to send us all out there. You know, to do all the fighting and all that stuff. That was Axel's idea.
Yeah.
You know, when we came back, Todd was like, "Paul, you're a genius," and Paul was like, you know, not saying, "Hey, go tell Axel that."
Right.
You know, then the biggest problem Paulie had, you know, as far as I was concerned, and looking at things is, you know, those guys that he couldn't take advantage of, he didn't. Those guys he thought he could take advantage of, he did. You know, and he never gave anybody credit for, you know, thinking of anything. You know, the 1 November to Remember card, it was my idea to bring in Bundy as the tag team partner. You know, Paulie called me up and said, I can't think of nothing. You know, when it was supposed to be Sabu and Road Warrior Hawk against Terry Funk and Mystery Opponent.
Right.
You know, I was like, well, I heard Bundy wants to come back. You know, and this is like days before the event. I was like, so it won't cost you a last-minute airplane ticket.
Right.
You know,
They brought you guys out first, right?
Yeah, brought me out first. Yeah.
You and then Bundy.
And you fuckers chanted refund. You wouldn't do that now, huh?
What were your thoughts on Todd Gordon?
I always thought Todd was a straight-up guy, really. You know, the night that I left ECW, I went to Todd. Of course, it was the changeover of, you know, the HHG Corporation was already in effect. And, you know, we really didn't know it was Paulie's company at that point, you know. And I went to Todd and I said, you know, Todd, I've killed myself this weekend. This money just isn't acceptable, you know. And then, you know, Todd was like, you know, don't go yelling and screaming and hollering at Paulie. Just, you know, explain your situation, you know. And so, of course, I go up to Paulie and, Paul, can I talk to you? And first thing out of his mouth, Ian, are you going to bitch? I was like, well, yeah. You know, but, you know, I always thought Todd was a straight-up guy. You know, if he were to start, you know, a federation tomorrow and call me and said, you know, hey, I'd like to use you, I'd go to work for him. You know, one of my nicest, fondest memories is at Todd Gordon's house, and we were having a picnic and stuff, and having a barbecue, I guess you would say, not a picnic. And Nancy Sullivan in a white bikini sunning herself. That'll always stick in my mind, no matter how many times I get hit in the head or how much pot I smoke. And Too Cold Scorpio doing 3 revolutions dive off of the little diving board. I just thought that was absolutely incredible. But, you know, Todd, I always thought Todd was, you know, a stand-up guy, you know, a guy that you could believe in what he said to you. You know, he always treated me fair.
Right.
You know, so, you know, like I said, you know, if he were to start a group tomorrow and, you know, say, hey, I'd like to use you, or I'd like to use you and Axel, I'd say, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Axel said at one time he was pretty upset, I guess, when you guys had the job for Stetson and Hotbody. Do you have any memories of that?
It wasn't the job for Stetson and Hotbody. It was Axel didn't like the way that we had to do the finish to go over, actually.
All right.
If you watch the footage, we go over. What it is those two arguing back and forth because they're splitting up. I almost remember this like yesterday. Shane Douglas was doing commentary with Joey Styles. And this was our last match we had before we went to Memphis. And they wanted to do a deal where Stetson and Hotbody argued the whole match. And then Hotbody gave me a superplex. Then was like bragging to Tony Stetson, and they made the tag. But while they were arguing, Stetson turned his back. Axel slid me out, laid down, and as he backed up into him, Axel schoolboyed him. Axel thought it was a retarded finish.
Right.
But it eventually led to them splitting up, and But I mean, that was actually one of the more heated arguments because we thought, as Funk's Few Good Men, if you're splitting these guys up, let us beat them. If if you're getting rid of them, I mean, it wasn't just splitting them up. They were getting rid of them.
Right.
You know, it was like, you know, we're Funk's Few Good Men. Have we not learned anything from Terry Funk? You know, type thing. You know, I'd even suggested, you know, beating him with the spinning toe hold, you know, type deal. And then you could have them argue that the one gave up and the other, you know, so on and so on.
Right.
You know, but yeah, that was a, that was a shouting match. Yeah.
Is it true that one of the times you guys actually went over on Public Enemy was by accident or something?
It was
like
by
that?
accident. Yes, it was.
It was a rib or something?
It was a rib. It was a rib on. Teddy and Johnny and Paulie were going to the show, and they were discussing the show. And Paulie thought it was so out of the way that anybody would ever believe it, that he didn't think Teddy would believe it. Well, Teddy had respect for me and Axel and thought it was about time that they put us over.
Right.
You know? And, you know, so Paulie was like, yeah, you're putting a bad breed over tonight. Figure out how you want to do it. You know? Well, he never told him anything different.
Right.
So when we went out there, we were going out there thinking we were winning the match. Well, the thing was, it was the winner faces Mikey and Cactus for the tag titles. You know? And I remember, I'll never forget, as Bob, what's his name?
Bob Ortiz?
Yeah, Bob Ortiz, I almost called him Ortez. Bob Ortiz says, and your winner and #1 contenders, Axel and Ian Rotten, the bad breed. You can hear Paulie behind the curtain yell, what? You know? I mean, so yeah, that was another shouting argument because we took it as it was so ludicrous for Paulie to think, you know, that the Rottens could actually go over on Public Enemy, you know, when, you know, and no offense to him, but, you know, both of us could work circles around Johnny with our eyes closed,
Right.
you know, and, you know, but he thought, you know, he was playing a rib on Teddy, you know, and then we had to do another match later on where we lost the #1 contendership back to Public Enemy,
Right.
you know, before the arena.
Right.
So, yeah, it was just,
What did you think of Paulie early on? What were your thoughts of him early on?
early on, I mean, you know, I thought he had a master plan, you know, take young guys, mix them with vets, you know, give them something they can't see on Monday night, you know. I thought he had a master plan, you know, and, you know, like I said, I loved Florida Championship Wrestling, so I was into the blood and the brawls, you know, and fighting all over the building and
Right.
all that shit. I thought that was a great idea, and then the mixed, very good wrestling in it, you know. I thought, you know,
Total package.
yeah, and then you know, as I'd watch him do things and stuff, you know, I'd go, Eddie Gilbert did that in Continental. Eddie Gilbert did that in Memphis. You know, I mean, and let's be honest, we all learn from what our environment is, and you know, he was taught the business by Eddie.
Right.
You know, so I mean,
What about the Pitbulls? What are your memories of early matches with those guys?
man, them guys were strong. You know, we had good matches with them. You know, we went out there to you know, every time we went out there to try to steal the main event. You know, we tried to be the show. You know, and those guys had that same attitude as we did. You know, and you know, I just think the biggest shame of it all is, you know, with, you know, all these reunions and all this other stuff and things, you know, that, you know, Teddy and Anthony aren't around, you know, and you know, it's a damn shame because, you know, God was a good guy, worked his ass off, and believed, you know, that you know, if you go out and do that, that good things are going to happen to you, and that's the best you really can hope for in the wrestling business. If you go out, work your ass off, you know, that, you know, somebody's going to give you a push and somebody's going to pay attention to you. You know, we were never really, you know, friendly with those guys or anything like that, but, you know, other than some miscue things happening, you know, like one time they gave me a super bomb and I bounced out the other side of the ring. I was crawling to Axel to make a hot tag once, and Anthony dropped an elbow in the back of my head, just broke my thumb. All my weight came down on it. And then one time, Anthony dropped me on a dive, and I broke 2 ribs in my back. But but really, in all reality, that's when I started thinking, I don't need to be jumping on people. When Sabu's the only one that catches you, you know, I mean, you get to the point that you're thinking, I don't need to be jumping on people. You know, I'm fat. I just need to stay on the ground.
How did you wind up as Funk's Good Men? Whose idea was that?
That was Terry's. It was Terry's. He thought, you know, that we really weren't being used, you know, and he saw the heart and dedication we had. I don't forget. Terry Funk cut this great promo one night on me and Axel, you know, how we weren't steroids and this and that. Remember that? And then Paulie cut it out of the TV, you know. It's like, oh, bitch, I got put over by Terry Funk, and Paulie cuts it out of the TV, you know. I was really such a student to listen to him, you know, when he was there, and then what an honor it was when he said, you know, he would say, you know, now Ian, what I want you to do is when I go over these matches, I want you to sit there and listen word for word what I got to say, and then when we go over it again, if I differentiate from anything from it, I want you to tell me. You know, I'm like, okay, you know. So the first couple times that worked real well. And then one time he messed it up, and then I'm sitting there going, oh boy, do I say anything? You know, I'm like, he could just turn around and slap the shit out of me. I was like, well, you know, he's liable to get pissed off if he says, you know, if I don't say something, and then it comes back on me, why didn't I say something? You know, and I was like, Terry, stop right there. That ain't what you said. You know, actually, that particular moment happened the night the line was crossed deal. You know?
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, that particular incident happened on that night, and I was scared to death to tell him no, that he had changed anything from it, and you know, it was an honor that, you know, I got to sit down and just listen to his wisdom, and you know, and then when Dory come in, you know, first thing out of my mouth after I, you know, said, hey, pleasure to meet you. You know, first thing out of my mouth was, can you teach me how to throw a European uppercut? You know, that was just like the type of person I was. You know,
right.
I mean, I asked Bret Hart one time in a bar how to put a short arm scissors on. You know, you know, I was like, I'm not trying to be a mark, but you know, he's like, I don't think you're trying to be a mark. I think you're trying to be a better worker.
Right.
And I was like, well, you're the best, and you do it so quick out of the hip toss and stuff. I was, you know, in a bar, a place called Bumpers down in D.C.
Right.
You know, Bret Hart showed me how to put a short arm scissors on.
Nice.
You know, but that's what I got from Axel, was to take something away from every person that you ever meet. You know, whether it's good or bad. You know, take that experience away, and Terry gave us an absolutely great opportunity, and Paulie dropped the ball.
Now, while you guys were there, you worked for Wing for Victor Tunes.
We worked for IWA Japan.
Okay, you're right.
Wing had split. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What were your memories of working for Victor?
He ripped us off. That's why we didn't go back. Seriously, that's why we didn't go back. We were supposed to get a certain amount of money, and he took a cut off of our money. And Terry wasn't happy about it. Cactus wasn't happy about it. And then we were supposed to go back in September, right after that the deathmatch tournament happened. Right. And my thing was, okay, if we're coming back, I want to come back for the amount of money we were supposed to get. You got us, ha ha ha, you know. But if we come back, you know, I would like to get the amount of money that we were supposed to get. Right. And he was like, no, if you want to come back, you can come back for the money that you got. Right. You know, and let's face it, you know, 16 hours in a plane, and you know, the harassment.
It's pretty expensive over there as well.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, we were making okay money, but I wanted the money that was arranged by Terry Funk and Cactus. Right. You know, I wanted that money. You know, if they thought that highly of us, you know, you know, I mean, because. You know, Terry had told me before we left, you know, don't bitch about your money. That's what you're getting, you know, and go out there and work hard, you know. And, you know, we thought we had a good, you know, spot because, you know, we were Cactus Jack's Gaijin army, you know, over there, you know. It was, you know, us three against Goto, Gunsaka, and
Ichihara, the little guy with the
little
red hair.
guy,
Kind.
you know, and stuff, and you know, we thought we had a nice spot. You know, they gave us matches where we just squash guys, you know, and then
Is Tajirian then?
Tajiri is the reason why I have a screwed up knee. We were working him and another dojo boy, and Axel wanted me to do something neat for the cameras. So I went up the top rope to do a flip. One or two of them on the floor, and they just parted on me like the Red Sea, you know. And I went up, catching my foot on the guard railing and smacking my knee on the apron, and I mean on the concrete, and I've got a crack all the way across my kneecap from hitting the concrete. But yeah, I mean, every once in a while, you know, I'll sneak in my son's bedroom and I'll grab his Tajiri doll. But the cool part was, you know, working a guy like Tarzan Goto, you know, who, you know, I watched shit with Onita and stuff, you know. You know, he hit me with a chair shot and the seat went flying out. So I went down to get my juice, and I mean, that motherfucker, and it was pouring, and Goto goes, "Oh, too much." You know, so Goto literally hands me the chair and goes, "Now me." You know, so I hit him in the head, and he's down there forever. You know, and stuff, and he comes up just bleeding buckets because he's got to look worse than I do.
Right.
You know, and we got in the back, and he was like, "Too much. Don't do that." You know, but. You know, it was a really good experience. You know, it was fun because I was over there with you know, Cactus and Tracy and Rick Patterson, Leatherface,
right.
and I thought he was a real great guy. I guess that would be the beginning of me and Nakamagi's love affair. You know, it was a good time. You know.
What was he like?
Nakamagi?
Yeah.
He was fine until I went back over when I went back over for Big Japan. Then he hassled me a lot. You know. He.
Didn't he have a lot of heat with everybody, kind of?
Huh?
Didn't he have heat with everybody, kind of?
He really got heat with me when, you know, I'm a handsome individual from the eyebrows down. You know, if you stay right here, I'm a pretty man. But you know, he really got heat with me when I was washing my hair in the shower, and I turned around, and he's got his pecker out, and he's sitting there stroking.
What?
You know,
Oh, he was gay or something?
Yeah.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, and, you know, he's a chubby chaser,
Oh.
and you know, and I mean, I had to punch him one time in an elevator because he tried to stick his tongue in my ear.
Damn.
You know, so. And I tried to get Masanaga to tell him to stop, and Masanaga just thought it was funny. You know, oh, he's just ribbing you. You know, and I'm like, no, he's not.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, he was stroking his dick watching me shower. That is not ribbing you. You know, he got drunk and was knocking on my door, and fucking sitting there going, Robinson, I sucky dicky. You know. And fucking dances Wolf Dudley's next door, just cracking up laughing. I can hear him through the walls, you know. And you know, I just made it to the point that, you know, I was over there 18 days, and I just didn't want to go back. You know,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, I haven't been back since, and I really have no desire to be. You know, I prefer going to Europe.
Whose idea was it to break you guys up, you and Axel, as a tag team? And were you guys for it or against it?
I was against it. I was against it. And like I said, between my ex-girlfriend, Axel's girlfriend, and the judge, Jeff Jones, putting shit in Axel's head, I think that's, you know, what broke us up. And he, you know, I didn't know it for a long time. Apparently, you know, Axel went to Paulie and said, you know, he'd be better off as a singles wrestler and all that stuff. And led to us breaking up. You know,
Whose idea was it to take the feud to the level of the gimmick matches you guys did?
it was both of ours. We had watched the Japanese style barbed wire bats and stuff like that. The very first match me and Axel had, Paulie told me if it wasn't a bloodbath on my behalf that both of us were fired. And that, I don't know if it's famous or not, but that's the familiar picture of me laying on the dressing room floor just covered in blood after that match that was put in a lot of the magazines. We had looked at it as, if we were going to do it, we were in a dressing room with Benoit, Malenko, Guerrero. We certainly weren't going to be Too Cold Scorpio. That if we were going to do it, we were going to do it like it had never been done before. We were going to use the bat. We were going to beat the shit out of each other, and
where nobody could top it.
Right. We
Even though you guys were in the first half.
Right. But we had looked at it. That was our job.
Right.
That was our portion of the show. That was our turn to shine.
Right.
And me and him, even though we weren't really getting along then, had both sat down and watched Leatherface and I think it was Crash in a barbed wire bat match, and we were like, "This sucks,"
Is that the one where he hasn't Leatherface head? He's like, "You're getting it too hard," and you can hear Leatherface talking.
And we used that as our Iggy. We used that as our Iggy. I said, Axel, if I'm hurting you with the wire or anything like that, or you're hurting me, just tell me you're digging me. That was you're digging me. Yeah, and the funny thing is, later on I wrestled Bull Payne in some barbed wire bat matches after Axel left, and I'm working the wire on him and stuff, and he's going, "You're killing me! You're killing me!" And I'm digging in more and stuff, and afterwards he always calls me Johnny. He goes, "Johnny, why the hell didn't you lighten up? I told you were killing me." I was like, "Oh, I thought you were just selling." I said, the Iggy is you're digging me. And he's like, "That's fucking you and Brian's. That's not me and yours. I'm telling you, you're fucking killing me." So, we just had that thought, that if we were going to do it, we were going to do it right,
Right. Now, Axel was telling us on his shoot that you guys got some heat from some of the other guys like Raven because you guys, went out there and put on such a killer match.
Yeah, we got heat from Raven. Cactus and Terry both asked us, pulled us aside, and asked us to save something for them one night. Which, of course, that night we greatly obliged them. Yeah, we got, after the first barbed wire bat match, I'll never forget this. We walked back through the curtain, the two of us are, "Hey, thanks, no, I'm not dead, everything's all right, and that's the night, Return of the Funker.
Right.
And Terry walks up to us and he goes, "You two silly son of a bitches, you're not supposed to hit each other with a bat that much." And we were like, well, that's what we wanted to do because, the other ones we saw, they barely touched the thing. They might use it for a finish,
right.
But, he was like, "That was silliness. Just silliness."
Do you think you guys went that forward just almost as like an FU to Paulie? Like, for not...
No, that had nothing to do with Paulie. That was us trying to solidify our job because we were scared they were going to take it.
Okay. I was going to ask you, how supportive was Paulie to you guys since you guys were tearing yourselves up?
Paulie wasn't shit. Todd was. Todd would say, "Hey, great, you guys all right?"
He'd always say thank you.
Yeah, he'd always say thank you. Half the time we'd ask Paulie, "Was that okay?" I didn't say it.
Right.
He wasn't real supportive of it all, and we were getting hard weighed left and right, Axel in Fort Lauderdale, Florida hit me with the barbed wire bat, and God, I wish you had footage of that.
Yeah, I don't.
There's no tape.
Yeah, there is. It's filmed. Yeah, because
they didn't release it.
No, they never released it. No, but he hits me with the barbed wire bat, and we had a couple arguments over. I wanted him to basically hard way the shit out of my arm with the bat. I mean, just beat, scrape, hit it, scrape, hit it, scrape. So we would shut up all the fucking smart marks.
Right.
and Axel hits me with my arm's over the guardrail. And Axel hits me with the bat. The one piece of wire hooks in my arm, and it's that scar right there, 32 stitches. In Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I mean, my arm just opened up like a pussy. I mean, the pink was there,
Right.
and you know yeah, and the crowd starts chanting "You sick fucks" and everything else, and you know, I go to the back and I'm like, Paulie, what am I supposed to do? My arm's really fucked. He was like, just go to the hospital, and I was like, okay, well, who's going to take care of the bill? You know, I said we had this discussion when we first started these barbed wire bat matches. He goes, just give him a different name. You know. So, on 2 occasions in Florida, Steve Williams has got doctor bills.
Right. That's awesome.
So, you know, and I'd give my dad's address, but like a couple doors down,
Right.
so I could remember it.
Right, right.
You know, and you know, take my social security number and
Change the last digits.
change the last digit by 1. You know, so. Because later on, working bull after Axel left, I got hard way with the ring bell doing a Taipei death match and got my head split open. And same thing, he goes, just give him a fake name.
Huh.
You know, so.
I have doctor bills from Dick Togo from 3 years ago. He used my mom's address. Because he was staying there. I'm like, what the fuck?
Does it bother you guys that like guys like Raven, Sandman, and Dreamer were being pushed as the hardcore guys, and you and Axel were being like taking a back seat promotional wise?
You know what? At the time, yes. Now, as I look back upon it, and you know, whether I'm at 3PW or CZW or you know wherever, you know, just the other night, you know, up in New York, you know, it's 10 years since me and him did this shit,
Right.
you know, and the fans' reaction to it, you know, to this day, you know, that's really what it's done for, you know, I mean, and you know. They, you know, even though I don't consider myself it, you know, when I have fans walk up to me and call me a hardcore legend and all this other shit, you know,
Right.
I know what I did solidified the company as Extreme, you know. I'm more than willing to go out and never say that Axel and Ian Rotten put the Extreme in Extreme Championship Wrestling, you know.
Do you feel that you and Axel should have headlined the shows?
No, not headline.
Okay.
I never felt we should have headlined. I always thought, you know, the wrestling should have headlined the show, you know. But a lot of times guys didn't want to go on after us, you know.
I was going to ask you, do you guys ever get heat from like some of your friends that have been vets in the business saying like, oh, you're killing the business? Blah, blah.
No, I mean, of course, fuckheads like Cornette have said it, and you know, and stuff like that. And I know you guys got 1,000 tapes on that, but you know, I mean, what's more legit, okay? And you know. I even heard a rumor about you guys on this, you know. What's more legit though? If I smack you upside the head with a light tube and you start bleeding, or I throw a punch and you do nothing.
The light
You know?
tube.
Right.
Right.
You know, yeah, the light tube doesn't actually hurt that much. You know, stings a little bit, especially if you get the little fuckers. You get them little fuckers, they hurt. You know. But
Yeah, but when you have a hunter
Yeah.
rolling around in them,
yeah, you
there you go.
have no opportunity to tell the glass, hey brother, that's a little too stiff. You know,
Right.
You can't tell the ball wire, you know, don't poke me. You know,
I got done CZW just filming. I had to go to the hospital 2 weeks later. They had to pick it out. It
Yeah.
was popping out. I was like, what the hell is this? It was
You know,
like a big
I mean-
pimple.
as far as legitimacy, okay, hardcore wrestling draws more of the fans that are, that's fake, that's phony, you know, I watch it because it makes me laugh, fans. You know, hardcore wrestling will draw that guy to the arena. You know, that girl to the arena. You know, the twisted sick bitch
Right.
that, you know, digs scars. You know, and there's a lot of them out there, trust me. You know, and yeah, me and Axel didn't do light tubes and, you know, shit like that, and, you know, back then.
Right.
You know, really, me and Ponda were the first to do that. You know, in IWA. Me and Ponda were the first guys using light tubes.
I'm going to ask you all about this stuff.
You know, you know, Dean would always just like shake his head at us, you know, and go, I hope they're going to clean up the ring. You know, and like Eddie Guerrero one time was like, brother, if I saw you coming to the ring with that ball wire bat, you'd win. I'd be gone. It'd be a count out, you know. But the funny thing is, you know, those are the guys that would always be at the monitor watching, you know, or they'd be at a curtain watching, you know, and you know.
What about the Taipei Deathmatch?
Taipei Deathmatch, I will take sole credit for. It was my idea.
Right.
I was watching a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where they did it, and I thought, man, that'd be really cool if they did that in a wrestling match.
Right.
And then I went to Teddy, and I was like, Teddy, I got this idea for this wrestling match. And Teddy was like, no.
Huh.
He was like, do you really want to do a match with Johnny, and he's got real glass on his hands? I was like, that's true. So when the opportunity came up, you know, funny story about this is, me and Axel always had to make our own gimmicks. Paulie didn't even have like the ring crew guys do it for us or nothing. Me and Axel were always making our own ball wire bats and
the first bat I made in my backyard.
Yeah,
I remember you had the big spool in the trunk of your car, like the whole.
Well, if I wouldn't have brought the barbed wire bat to the arena, the match wouldn't have happened. You know, that's like the promoter not bringing a fucking ring.
It's like when we did the thumbtacks, and you know, I bought them out of my money. You know, and stuff like that. You know, but the Taipei Deathmatch, you know. The night before, I'm in Louisville, and by this time, the heat between me and him had been squashed. And, yeah. And,
well, that's that heat, the first time.
I thought he abandoned me.
Okay.
Really. I thought, you know, I thought he left me out to dry, you know, when I'd fight, kill some motherfucker over him, you know, and anything there was, you know. Johnny Grunge chipped 3 of his teeth, and remember the night Johnny Grunge got split open, back of his head, 26 stitches?
Yeah.
Payback's a bitch, you know? And, you know, he was begging me, oh, Johnny's tight with Paulie, please don't do it, you know, so on and so on. I said, fuck him. You know, Johnny went to the ring all coked up, chipped 3 of Axel's teeth in New Jersey. You know, the next night in the arena, he got his fucking wig split, you know? And that's just the way it was. Right. You know, Larry Latham down in Memphis tried to be a tough guy. I split his head. You know, I mean, you know, it was just, you know, really that, you know, I thought he let other people influence what was a good thing, you know, and, you know, eventually you know, I wasn't real tight with my family at that time. He was pretty much my family, and then, you know, when he didn't want to, you know, go to shows with me and stuff like that, you know, at that point, I was just like, fuck it, I'm moving to Kentucky.
Right.
You know, I got a girl there that loves me, and, you know, I'm gonna go from there. But, you know, let me get back to the Taipei Deathmatch thing. We had to break up beer bottles. Paulie wanted to use candy glass, you know, like they do in XPW. Right. And I said, no. I said, this is ECW. I said, if one piece of that flies out and the crowd figures out it's fake, everything we have ever done is killed. You know, I said, we'll use real glass, you know, and that's all there is to it.
Right.
So, the night before, I'm breaking up beer bottles out on my porch. Breaking them up. Next thing I know, I hear, woo, woo! 2 cop cars pull up. The neighbors thought people were outside breaking car windows. So, the other idea I get is I put all this glass in a styrofoam cooler. And I get to the airport, and I put Fragile stickers all over this thing. Right. I tape it all up and stuff like that. And Axel picks me up at the airport, and I grab the cooler full of glass, and I shake it, and I drop to my knees and start crying, my vase! My vase! And the funny thing is, you see right there people opening up their bags, you know, making sure shit isn't all messed up. Awesome. And, like, I'm carrying stuff out of the airport, just like acting like I'm sobbing and stuff, and it was just absolutely hysterical.
That's class. Now, when after your feud, what plans did Paul have for you guys?
Axel had quit and gone back to Memphis.
Right.
At the time, they were like a WWF developmental territory type thing, and he thought he could get a job there. Then they brought Bull Payne in to work
Flagstaff.
Yeah.
Kind of square.
And also we did the arena, and we did the Florida shots, and you know, the funny thing is, you know, I told Paulie, I said, you know, this isn't going to be as violent as me and Axel because me and Bull don't have that kind of relationship.
Right.
You know, and you know, right out of Paulie's mouth is, well, you're going to have to make it that way. You know, so you know, I was having him hard way with me with the thing they ring the bell with, and you know, everything else. I mean, we were killing each other, and you know, that kind of square place is the place where I quit.
I was going to ask you what happened that night.
I was sitting next to Cactus. He was complaining about the IWA deathmatch tournament. He goes, "I work 3 times, but I get paid $300, and there's 27,000 people." He was bitching.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I heard in the one locker room.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, what happened?
"Oh my!" It was the loudest argument.
Was that after Cyber Slam, I think, a little bit?
It was in August.
It was in August. It was the SummerSlam weekend when the Japanese were in and stuff like that. I had worked Bull Payne. The agreement was, any time that the ball wire bat was used, I was supposed to get $500. That was the agreement. You know, and that night I got 3 shots, $350. You know, and we used the bat every single show.
Right.
You know, so I could see him not paying me $1,500, but you know, I mean, I was all cut up, and you know, we were hitting each other with the light bulbs from the tables from the Kenneth Square dinner theater.
Like, yeah, it was a theater.
We were like hitting each other with the light bulbs and stuff like that, and you know, we just beat each other up, and you know, and Cactus's exact words were, you know, Ian, if you don't go stand up for yourself, he's going to continue to do this to you. Because the only time my pay got somewhat regular was when Chris Benoit yelled at Paulie over it. You know.
Oh, he went to bat for you?
Yes. You know, he went to bat for both me and Axel.
Oh, wow.
You know.
So what? Paulie only paid $350 for all 3.
All 3 dates.
So like $100 a night instead of $500.
And I had to stay with fans basically.
So you couldn't afford a hotel.
Because he wouldn't give me a hotel.
Yeah.
He wouldn't give me a hotel. You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've stayed with that little short lady Mo.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I can't tell you how many times I've stayed with Tony Brown.
Right.
You know, because they'd feel sorry for me. I'd just be, you know, I'd be all bandaged up and have that condom like thing on my head, and you know, be in the hotel of wherever Paulie was, you know, keeping us at this time, and I'd be in the lobby, and they'd be like, you know, I'd be sitting there, and they would, why don't you go to sleep, you know, and you know, I was like, I ain't got a room, you know. I can't tell you how many times Teddy put me up, you know, so there was many times, you know, after a show, you know, I was all beat up and cut up and stuff. I didn't know where I was going, you know. Didn't have a clue.
So what happened that night? You went to Paul?
I went to Paulie and asked him for more money. Basically, he said there is no more money. He said if you can tell me a way to keep this company afloat and pay you guys more money, I'd be more than happy to listen to you. And Scott and Rick Steiner were right next to me, and I said, well, stop paying them $3,000. And you know, I said, because you know, I said, you know, it's guys like me and Tommy and Taz and you know, Pit Bulls and Public Enemy and stuff that these people are paying to see beforehand. You know.
It's that time the underneath guys are starting to take over.
Yeah,
So.
you know, I was like, you know, there's going to be 1,500 people in that building, whether you know Rick and Scott Steiner are there or not.
Sure.
You know, and I said, you know, I was like, you know, I need more than this. You know, I was like, and I even told him, I said, I'm not asking for $1,500. You know, I said, I just need more than this. I said, this is ridiculous. You know, and well, I don't have it. You know, I told him, I said, you're lying, and I know it. Your lips are moving. That means you're lying. You know, and he wouldn't go outside with me. You know, I think he was afraid I was going to hit him. You know, which I at the end of it I probably would have, really. You know, because you know.
It was pretty heated.
Yeah, you know, and this was just after we had just gotten back from Florida, and you know, I was told, you know, you're like family to me. You're like Tommy and Taz to me. Just the way you treat your family, you know. I mean, one time, we got Teddy and Johnny's checks by accident, me and Axel did. And oh my God, were we pissed. Oh my God. I mean, you know, and I knew what other guys were making in the company because Paulie discussed it with me.
Right.
You know, that's how I knew Rick and Scott were making $1,500 a piece.
Right, right.
You know? And, you know, I just, you know, I had it, you know, because I was the guy, like I said, that was going down and flyering towns. It wasn't costing Paulie nothing for me to stay at my father's house.
Right.
You know, it wasn't costing him anything for me to do that. The very first time ECW went down to Florida, I went down on a Greyhound because he didn't buy my ticket in time, and I didn't want it to cost the company a whole lot of money. I spent 24 hours on a bus from Baltimore, Maryland to Tampa, Florida. You know? I mean, the second time with me and Axel, we drove down there. You know? And that's when I was living in Louisville. You know? The third time, me and Bull went down there and drove down there. You know? I was a company man, you know, but I thought it was time that the company gave me something, gave me a little bone, you know. I mean, in Florida, you know, I had to remind them that I needed the gas money for putting out 45,000 flyers. 45,000 flyers. You know how many flyers that is? It's 45,000.
Right.
You know, but I mean, that's a shitload of flyers. You know, I mean, you know, and I'm a pale white guy. I don't handle well in the Florida sun. You know, I mean, but you know, on top of that, I got my noggin split. Don't want to pay that bill. You know, didn't want to pay the bill for my thumb being broken. You know, Axel hit me with a pair of wire cutters in one of the matches, one of like Bad Breed Death Match or whatever it was, and gave me a brain contusion. You know, I had to get a CAT scan and stuff like that. I had to beg Paulie to pay it. You know, I paid $10 a month until eventually I said, I'm not paying no more. You got as much as I'm going to give you.
Right.
You know, and that's all I'm going to give you. And they threatened to sue, and I said, go ahead, and they never did. But anyway, you know, I was fed up. You know, I had it. And the funny thing was like Teddy and Johnny were watching my back, and Taz. This is where I got heat with Dreamer from, because I always thought me and Tommy were boys. You know, one time Kevin Sullivan worked Tommy out so hard, Tommy couldn't even move. You know, and you know, I use my skills as a masseuse to take care of him and get his body ready where he could wrestle that night. You know, me and Tommy would sit down and talk about baseball cards and hockey cards and sports and stuff. I thought me and Tommy were boys. You know, and Tommy had the power and the ability to say, Paulie, you're wrong. And I asked him to step up for me, and he didn't. You know, and you know, that more than pissed me off hurt my feelings. You know, because you know, I like to think there's a reason why we call each other brother. You know, and you know, I thought Tommy had the opportunity to tell Paulie, hey, you know, you're losing a good guy here. You're losing a good company guy here. You know, why don't you make it right? And he was like, oh, I don't want to get involved in it. You know, well, sometimes every once in a while you got to stick your neck out. You know, and Tommy and Taz were behind Paulie, watching his back, and I had Teddy and Johnny. You know, and Teddy said to Paulie, you know, you're gonna regret losing that kid. You know, because he'll do anything for you. He just wants you to throw him a nut.
Right.
You know, and that's all I wanted. You know, like I said, I didn't want $1,500.
Right.
But you know, if he gave me, you know, half of that $750 or whatever, you know, I'd have been all right. You know, he had the money. You know, it kills me. I watched that rise and fall of ECW DVD while I was over in Europe just recently, and all the guys would be like, I don't know why we went out of business. The buildings were full, and you know, we were selling merchandise and all that stuff. Look under Paulie's mattress, and you'll find the money. You know, and maybe Hoffa. But I mean, you know, there is a, you know, that's the reason why I have a great disdain for Paulie. You know, is the fact that, you know, I did anything and everything I could for him. I believed in him. I believed in his company. You know, I believed there was pay-per-views, and I believed that, you know, there were sold-out houses, and I believed there was, you know, 4 and 5 cities, you know, out there, you know, that can be run and packed, and, you know, and stuff like that. And I was willing to be the workhorse of that. You know, that's how I got the bulb to start IWA. I was like, well, I did it for Paul Lee, I can do it for myself.
Right.
You know.
I was going to ask you about IWA. So obviously you left ECW, and you created IWA Mid-South.
Right.
Okay. How did that all start? Did
Well,
you have any heat ever from Victor at all for using the name IWA or not?
No. Only person that's ever called me was Rob Russin.
Okay.
And that's when we went to IWA Mid-South.
Right.
You know.
Didn't you also do stuff for Carol Uzo too? Like the truck stop.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was after ECW, right? Or,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Carluza was the first person to bring me back to the East
To the
Coast
area.
after I left.
Right.
I left ECW. I worked Balls and I worked Pondo.
Pondo.
I worked Balls as Maka Singh or whatever the hell it was. You know, because I was supposed to work Abby, and Abby no-showed, and then me and Balls played all over the place. But you know, IWA was started out of, you know, Memphis was dying. You know, people were hating it. You know, and,
How bad were those house shows? Like,
oh, they were
like the Wednesday nights in Evans.
yeah,
where just-
they were god awful. I
Yeah.
mean, there was more cockroaches in the Evansville Coliseum than there was people. You know,
What would they draw? Like 100 people?
if
If
that.
that. That's a big building, right?
Yeah,
the big building.
it seats 5,000.
Yeah.
You know, and I started a hotline, and I would go down to the gardens and hand out flyers for the hotline and stuff, and you know, I'd sell Japanese tapes and whatever off of it that I could to make a couple extra bucks, and you know, I was having guys call me and you know, want me to do the ball wire bat and shit, but they didn't want to pay me, you know. So I was like, well, if you want to pay this, I'll come and do it, you know.
Right.
And every Tuesday night after the garden show, my hotline would be filled up. You know, that was the shits. That man, you know, I'm so sick of seeing the same people over and over again. So I wish you'd bring some of that ECW stuff here, and you know, and stuff like that. And eventually, I was, you know, I booked a show here or there, and I lost my ass when the biggest snowstorm ever, '96 hit. That's ever hit Kentucky hit. When me and Pondo did the first 4 corners of pain match, and there was like 25 people in there.
Yeah.
And you know, and I brought in Luna and Dave and, you know, Debbie Combs, whatever, you know, and then October of '96, Danny Davis was running this building, the old Kmart building as we call it, and they weren't happy because he wasn't drawing, they weren't selling no beer, he didn't pay no rent, they only made money off the beer,
alcohol.
yeah, off the concession and stuff, and so a buddy of mine, you know, said, I think if you went over there, you know, and said, hey, you know, I'll give you a little rent and a cut of the beer, you know, you could probably do something over there. So I went over there and I did that, you know, and they told Danny to leave, and, you know, I started running shows there. And by Thanksgiving night, you know, we started in October, by Thanksgiving night we had 300 people in the building, you know, first show I brought in Teddy and 911, you know, and you know, I lived off of what I saw Paulie do, and it, you know, people love to be surprised, and you know, people you know, will come to every show if they think, oh my God, if I miss something,
Who's going to show up? What am I?
you know, if I miss this show, who's going to be there, you know, that's how I built the Highland crowd, you know, Highland crowd, you know, was using surprises every month. You know, if you miss an IWA show, you never know who's going to show up.
Right.
You know, and basically IWA was started off of, you know, USWA being horrible. Well then, my first big acquisition was Doug Gilbert. You know, he was one of their main draws of guys that people did come to see. He actually, you know, people did come to see in Louisville. And then I took Doug Gilbert, and then I took Tommy Rich, you know, and then I took PG-13, and then I took, you know, Stephen Dunn, and Paul Diamond, Billy Joe Travis. You know, I took all of his talent from him.
Right.
You know, I saw what it did to Bill Watts' UWF group. You know, when
Took from world class.
Right.
yeah, you know, and you know that's what I went for. You know, and I tried to add the southern mix of wrestling that people wanted to come and see, with the hardcore, with the
Just change it up.
with we also added lucha in there with
Uh-huh.
Kickboxer and Tarek, you know, doing lucha shit. You know, so I thought if we gave people a different product, you know, they'd come and see it.
What were some of your favorite matches and innovations with IWA Mid-South?
You know, as far as innovation part, I think we've had a big part in changing the face of independent wrestling. You know, because, you know, I think, like, you know, if you really look at it, you know, IWA started the trend of you better put on a damn good show type thing, you know, and see, I'm my goal is not really to be rich, you know. I'd like it, you know, but my goal truly is a better business. I mean, people may say that's a crock of shit, blah blah blah, all that stuff. No, if I could pay my bills on time, you know,
And be proud of what you're putting on.
not have to make a deal with the devil, you
Right.
know, you know, if I could do those things and run the type of show that I wanted to run, and have the ability to create Colt Cabana, to help develop CM Punk, to help develop Chris Hero, you know, to help develop Ace Steel, you know, to help develop Matt Sydal, Delirious, Daisy Hayes. She has gone from a below average indie women's worker to a fantastic ladies wrestler, you know,
Right.
by being in IWA Mid-South and wrestling on a regular basis. You know, that's the innovation that I am most proud of. And the thing that I would like to accomplish most is a territory. There is no territories left. There is no places left where the young guys can learn from the vets and, you know,
Work almost every day
And
like you did
yeah.
in Dallas.
right. You know, that's what I would love to be able to contribute to this business. You know, when I'm dead and gone, my whole wish is that they say, you know, John Williams, Ian Rotten, he loved the wrestling business, and all he wanted for it was a better wrestling business. You know, and that's what makes it bad that, you know, guys like Teddy and Chris go. You know, because those are guys that actually cared, you know, that the business become a better business. You know, and it's hard for the business to keep going when, and I'm not saying it's all of them, but when the vets just go and all they care about is selling their gimmicks. Let me get my match, get my money, and get my gimmicks and gone. You know, when you guys got guys like Chris and Tracy Smothers and, you know, Teddy that, you know, watch the monitor, watch the curtain. Hell, Chris even watched matches through the concession stand. You know, that's what makes me proud, is that I think by bringing those guys in that we contributed to making a better wrestling business. You know, with CM Punk having the opportunity to wrestle Tracy Smothers, you know, having the opportunity to wrestle Sabu, you know, which are two totally different styles, but what's that do? That helps you be a wider range athlete. You know, we brought Jerry Lynn in for Colt Cabana. You know, we brought in all kinds of guys.
Eddie Guerrero.
You know, Eddie Guerrero,
Mysterio.
Rey Mysterio. You know, and yes, that helped the company and stuff like that. But they were put against those guys because I looked at those guys as the future of the business.
Right.
You know, Axel used to tell me, because I used to say Cabana and Punk were the next Malenko Guerrero, and Axel would say, "You're filling those kids' heads full of shit." You know, and I go, "No, I'm not." I go, "They will be the next generation's Malenko and Guerrero." That's the way I look at it. You know, I always think, you know, that I have the ability to look at somebody and say, this is, you know, this is a piece of clay and we need to sculpt it. and we can, because this person has the ability, and this person has the heart, and this person has the drive to make themselves that much better.
Right.
I think we've done wonders for Matt Seidel and Delirious. I think we're doing great for Brandon Tomaselli, Josh Abercrombie, Jimmy Jacobs, Alex Shelley. How can I forget them two? Those two's development came because they were working every week, and they were working good guys.
Go ahead.
But that's it.
I was going to ask you. You were talking about Punk earlier. You were quoted at one time saying like Punk he's a great talent, but has a terrible attitude. What are your thoughts of that?
It's true. He does have a terrible attitude.
As far as what?
He doesn't realize he's straight edge, and he's in a business that ain't, and that's what I mean by his attitude. He has to learn his surroundings around him are going to be what they are, and that's all there is to it. You can't push your beliefs on someone else, especially in this business, because that's going to make waves for you that you don't need. He is an incredible athlete, has a great mind, and he keeps that mind clean and sober. I mean, I can remember in Dayton him running literally 103 fever, snot running down his face, coughing up, everything, and he wouldn't take cold medicine. Okay, that's you, but that's not everybody else. So just because you see somebody taking some pain pills, you don't have to go, hey, you're a druggie. And sometimes Punk does that, and I've told him that. Sometimes, there's many guys out there that are very strong opinionated, and I've told Punk, just because, like for instance, those guys used to come over to my house after shows to tape their matches and stuff like that, so they would have copies of their matches, and even though it was my house, I would go in another room to smoke weed because I didn't want to offend Punk, Now, not everybody's going to do that for you, kid. And Punk would always say, it's your house, you don't have to do that, and because he would sit there. He'd come through my office in Charlestown when we would just go silly there, especially like when Sabu was in and stuff like that, and he'd come through to get his payday and be, thanks, boss, and stuff, and that's what I mean by he's got a bad attitude. He doesn't think he's better than anybody else, as far as wrestling talent and stuff is concerned like that. But he has to realize that the wrestling business is, unfortunately, always going to be full of alcohol, pot, pills, and anything else that comes along that's newfangled. And, I think as he gets older and he matures and things like that, I think he's digressed on that a whole lot, but when Punkster thinks he's right, and that's all there is to it. You should know that better than anybody.
Now, speaking about him, he had a great match in a series with Hero. Why do you think Punk got more immediately out of the matches than Hero did?
Because he wrestles without a T-shirt on.
Huh.
I mean, I'm being honest with you.
It's about the look.
You guys, and by what I say, you guys,
right.
you guys at Ring of Honor, had the ability. You wanted a shoot interview.
No,
you guys had the ability to take both of them, and Gabe's opinion is because he wears a T-shirt, and he's a little chubby, that doesn't make you a worker,
We would fight over this all the time. we wanted Hero.
And I mean, if you'd have took Hero and Punk at the same time, they'd have been the same thing.
Oh
yeah. Because nobody loves the wrestling business more than Chris Hero. I mean, you guys think you got tapes. Hero can match you.
Huh.
I mean, and I'm serious about that because Chris wears a singlet or T-shirt up top because he's not ruggedly built or anything like that. I think Punk's new look with the trunks and all that stuff, that's great. I think if you have a federation full of guys that look like that, though, what makes them any different?
Exactly.
And I think what separates Punk and Hero is that Punk got an opportunity in Ring of Honor and Hero didn't, and I've told Gabe over the computer that that's your stupid mistake, because 100,000 Elvis fans can't be wrong, and there's a whole lot of people out there that tell you Hero is a working machine.
That was awesome.
You claim that you want the best of the best workers, well, you're missing one. And that's okay, because that works out for me, because that way I'm the only one that can put on Samoa Joe, Chris Hero. I'm the only one that can put on Chris Hero, CM Punk now.
Right.
Or whatever. I mean, I know Norm Connors might, or whatever, but that works well with me. But I mean, I really truly believe, as far as internet success is concerned, it's because Punk got an opportunity in Ring of Honor.
About those two guys that had great matches, why do you think the rivalry is so good?
Pure and simple, those guys both believe in themselves greatly, and both of those guys will go out there, and it doesn't matter if it's 13 people or 13,000, they will bust their ass to no end. Two guys that aren't afraid to get hit, and they're two guys that are students of the game. They study and they critique themselves, and what really comes down to is they are each other's harshest critics. I mean, here, Punk can have a great match and you go, man, that was great, and you go, I could have done this better, I could have done this better, I could have done this better, and here is the same exact way, what made those two great is them both always striving for perfection. You got two guys that's all they wanted to do is strive for just pure, total blowout matches.
What was your thoughts and memories on working with Eddie and Ray?
They were, Eddie, of course, I knew from ECW. One night I had a horrible house, and it was
Dayton?
Yeah, it's completely the building's fault. There was a fair outside, all the parking was taken up, everything, and I told Eddie, I said, your money's gonna be a little short, I said, but I'll send the rest of it to you. And this is the night before he's gonna win an Intercontinental title, and he just don't worry about it, Ian. Just give me this, and we'll call it even. And it was less than half of his money, And he's like, but I'm gonna go out there and tonight we're not gonna go out there full strong. Next thing I know, he's taking the superplex, powerbomb, three-way spot, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, Eddie, what happened to just going out there and relaxing? He's like, oh, you put me in a ring with Cabana and Punk. Those kids are so good, I got to go out there and go. Ray was real friendly to everybody. It was an IWA Mid-South show that Ray's talking about on the Eddie Guerrero special, that when they first saw each other again and were sparring and stuff. That happened at the Morris Mayhem show. And all the guys out of the dressing room came out and just was watching him, wrestle for like 45 minutes, And Ray was real cool. Did anything I asked of him, even took a picture without his hood on with my son, and stuff. Of course, he was wrestling back then without his hood too. So, but a lot of them guys are kind of funny about pictures then. I thought the three-way they had with Punk the night before in Indianapolis was fantastic. I thought Ace Steel against Rey Mysterio is, one of the closest to flawless matches that you can get. So they were just a complete pleasure to work with.
Has anyone ever refused to do a job for you? And if so, who? And what were the circumstances?
Refused to do a job? Not eventually. Eventually they were told, I told Greg Hammer Valentine one time, and when I was running shows in Baltimore, I said, you can either do the job or you can go to fuck home.
Right.
Tonight I'm your Vince McMahon. And if you don't like that, too bad.
What do you say?
You know, and I told him, I said, you know, it was against Johnny Gunn, Tom Brandy of all people, and I said, the kid's local, you're not. I'm going to use him. I'm not going to use you. You know, this is what I want. I was like, you know, I don't want it a DQ. I don't want it a count out. I want it a pin. You can do it any way you want to. You know, but I want a 1, 2, 3. You know, and afterwards, you know, because see, Axel taught me very early in my career, you know, that you know, if somebody don't want to do a job, you just get rid of them. You know, Agent Orange gave us trouble about doing a job for Bill Blake one time. I went over to Agent Orange's house to buy weed, and I was going out the door, and Axel said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going over to Bruce's house to get weed from him." He said, "Well, while you're over there, tell him we're not using them anymore." So, of course, after he gave me a good deal is when I told him.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I've had guys say, "Hey, I can't," you know, I got to look out for this. And if they give me a rightful explanation, you know, I'll work around it. You know, if it's something that I can understand, you know, like, I don't know, something bullshit like TNA politics. But, but for the most part, everybody knows that's a no-no. You don't tell me that,
right.
You know, because, you know, I'll tell you to grab your shit and go home. You know, and, you know, I don't care if I bought you an airplane ticket or not. Find your own way back to the airport, because none of my people are going to help you. And,
right.
You know, and you're pretty much screwed.
Has anyone ever fucked you over on a finish or anything?
Fucked me over on a finish? Abby was supposed to beat Pondo last time he was in with the Abby elbow, and they never even got in the ring.
Huh.
And I told him the next time I seen him, I said, you know, that wasn't what I wanted. You knew what you were supposed to do. I said, you're a legend and all that. I respect that, but, you know, I won't be using you ever again. I said,
Right.
and I had ideas of you know, bringing him back, you know, and doing a cage and stuff, and, you know.
I think he no-showed us
Oh, you
the
went
one
to
time.
Japan.
Yeah, but he never told us.
No, he told us. He called me first.
After we found
Well,
out on the
yeah.
internet. We were
Well,
supposed
don't
to
be
do-
afraid of Abby.
Oh, no,
He no-showed, all right?
Yeah.
You know,
he actually called. He did call.
We're supposed
He
to-
went to Japan.
It was supposed to be like Carino
Yeah.
and Jun Kasai was supposed to be in. He was going to do a tour. It was supposed to be Carino and Jun Kasai versus Abby and Homicide.
Yeah, it was Holmes.
And it didn't happen.
What about your thoughts on Necro Butcher and Corporal Robinson, J.C. Bailey, those guys?
Necro's a loon. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. You know, how much more time does his body have? I don't know. You know, but
Where's he out of Michigan?
he lives in West Virginia now,
Oh, really?
and I'm telling you, he's a loon. He needs to slow down. You know, Axel once told me that, you know, Cactus told him that Abby told him you need to pick your spots of where you do the crazy shit. You know, and I think Necro's getting to that point that he has a reputation and people know he'll do it. You know, he just needs to slow down a little bit, you know. I mean, because, you know, that's going to make for a real short-lived career. You know?
And that match was Pondo, his whole arm.
Yeah, that was one of the scariest sights I've ever seen in my life, with his arm just hanging out.
Yeah.
You know.
What about Corporal Robinson?
You know, Corporal is Corporal's the first guy I want standing beside me if I'm going to be in a bar fight. You know, and then maybe, you know, Samoa Joe next. You know, but that should tell you what a tough motherfucker, throw punches and ask questions later person Corporal is. You know, he won the last King of the Death matches. I thought it was apropos to, you know, put him over. He was one of the main guys that, you know, hadn't really done anything as far as the tournaments were stuff concerned, you know, and he you know, never ever bitched about a bad payday, and never bitched, you know, about a finish, nothing, you know. So You know, he's a real good guy to have working for you, and a loyal individual. You know, JC. If he keeps himself straight, you know, he's got wrestling ability. He's got, you know, balls the size of Singapore. You know, he could do it all. You know, but he's kind of stopped concentrating on learning to wrestle. You know, and more willing to accept the hardcore stuff. You know, or he accepts what you can get away with on his daddy's shows, you know, in Kentucky, which is, you know, next to nothing, you know, needed talent wise, you know. But I really think JC's still young enough that if he pushes himself, you know, and gave it that much more of an effort, you know, he could really be something as far as, you know, an independent star. You know, will he ever go to the WWF? I doubt it. You know, I mean, is that really what we determined that you made it? You know, if it is, there's a whole lot of real good guys that never made it.
Was it hard putting together your first King of Deathmatch tournament?
The first one wasn't hard. Getting another one was. You know, once people saw, you know, speaking of J.C. Bailey, his dad came close to shutting me down. You know, his dad called buildings and did all that shit, and you know, his dad's a foregone leader in the movement of you can get shit done by making phone calls instead of worrying about beating somebody with a better show.
Right.
I can't beat them with a better show, so I'll fuck up their building, or I'll take down their posters, or not that I'm saying that Joe did taking down posters bit, but you know, definitely did the phone calls. But you know, there's plenty of those guys out there with the posters and the flyers and, you know, stuff like that. You know,
I'm sure I'll be experiencing that in a couple of months. How do you react when people say you're exploiting the guys by putting them in these matches?
I don't hold a gun to their head. Okay. That's the simplest answer I can say. You know, I never ever said, you know, you have to do this.
Right.
You know.
What started the beef with you and Jim Cornette, and how do you react to all those comments made from Jim Cornette throughout the years?
Jim Cornette's a motherfucking hypocrite. Plain and simple. Why don't you get some of your tapes out here of Old Smoky Mountain? Let's take a look at the barbed wire cage. Okay? Doesn't matter whether it's a fucking barbed wire cage or a light tube. It's all everything that is the spectacle of professional wrestling to sell a fucking ticket. Let's get out Chris Jericho bleeding all over the place. Bleeding all over the place. Where was that at? Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Who ran that? James E. Cornette.
Testify.
You know? I will testify because I'm tired of the prick. He always talks about how he's going to beat my ass. Well, he had him and his ugly girlfriend at Cher. I stood right next to him and pissed in Louisville at the Freedom Hall. He didn't say shit to me. You know? You know, he's a hypocrite. You know? And he's got a billionaire backing him, and he's worried about me, a guy who, you know, rubs two pennies together to try to make a nickel, or a guy that has to make a deal with the devil every once in a while to pay the bills. You know? I mean, you know,
I thought Vince was the devil.
No, Vince is the Antichrist. You're the devil.
All right, cool.
What befuddles him is how I stay in business, and he has a billionaire backing him, and we run the same town, and as bad as I outdraw him. You know, and you know he doesn't understand. You know, unlike you guys can. The power of selling a videotape, the power of selling a DVD, you know. I mean, the reason why he doesn't understand that is because he's never had to worry about it, you know. He's always
advertises WWE Big Show.
Yeah, that's another thing they do. They put on posters, WWF Big Show. They're not telling you the Big Show's coming. They make you think that a WWF Big Show is coming. And when the only guys they have from WWF there are Mark Henry versus Big Show, you'd like to see that in your main event, wouldn't you? You know, I mean, you know, Cornette's biggest problem is he thinks he has a territory and he doesn't. I run more shows than OVW does. You know, I run a higher quality show than OVW does. You know, when I run shows with AJ Styles, American Dragon, you know, CM Punk, Samoa Joe, Homicide, B-Boy, you know, and you know he's running shows with Matt Morgan, you know. Hell, look how long they kept Nova down there for, you know. As far as I was concerned, you know, Nova was a better worker in ECW before he went down there and you know, sent him up to WWF. Now he's not anywhere near the worker or puts anywhere near the effort into his matches that he used to. You know, Cornette's biggest problem is, you know, he thinks wrestling is 1985, you know, and wrestling's not. And he thinks my product is the same as it was, you know, 9 years ago when I started. You know, I did a lot of the shit that I did back then because it was what I had to work with. You know, it's the same thing, same exact thing on a smaller scale as ECW. The reason why all the violence was in ECW at the very, very beginning was because that's all he had out of the workers. And Paulie was smart enough to get the best out of those workers that he could. Why would you send Tony Stetson out there to do a 25-minute wrestling match? You know, you're not going to do that. Why would I send Madman Pondo out there to try to do wrist locks? You know? No, I'm going to let him swing shit, you know, and do stuff like that and let him bleed all over the place, you know? I mean, blood sells tickets. The spectacle of a special match, whether it's an old-school dog collar or a barbed wire cage, or whether it's, you know, ring surrounded in light tubes, it's still a gimmick to sell tickets, you know? What's more degrading, to get hit with a light tube or to have to wear a dress or eat dog food or, you know, any of them old Memphis, you know, stipulations that Cornette's so fond of, you know? You know, don't worry about me. Don't talk about on Meltzer's show about running me over with a car and all that shit, you know? I'm not hard to find, you know? And the other thing he gets pissed about me at is a wrestling fan's a wrestling fan. You know, when you run a public venue, not a private venue, a public venue, you know, and you draw wrestling fans there, they're fair game. You know, so I went to those shows and I handed out flyers. You damn straight. You know, when, you know, he had, you know, over there at like the so-called Davis Arena, all that stuff, I never sent people over there to put out flyers. That was Danny's private building. He paid all the rent there. Everything there was wrapped around him. When you're at the Louisville Gardens, that's free game. You know, you're there one night. That's a public place.
Right.
You know, and cars on a public street and public parking lots and stuff like that. You know, that's just the way I look at it. You know, I did the same thing to USWA, and I do the same thing again. I'm gonna do the same thing to Shane come Friday night. You know, June 10th. I'm gonna stand outside the ECW arena and hand out flyers for my show the next afternoon.
There's gonna be a lot of flyers being handed out that night.
You know, but I mean, I'm still gonna do it.
Right.
You know.
How'd you wind up in Big Japan?
Big Japan was pretty much Kendo Nakasaki was the American booker, and Bull Payne had gone over there a couple times, and Bull handed him a tape of all my deathmatch shit, and he was like, whoa. You know, that's basically the way it was.
Right.
You know, and then now I understand it's a whole lot different. You know, money's the shit
Right.
over there now and stuff like that. And, you know,
What are your thoughts on Ito and all those guys?
Ito's a crazy motherfucker. He has been doing death matches for a year and is ate up.
Yeah.
I mean, he is ate up. You know, and then the kid I just wrestled at one of Pondo's shows. What the hell is his name? Sakamoto.
Sekimoto, big guy, kind of.
Yeah. Big guy. Yeah. You know, he wants to do death matches now because he sees the fame Ito's getting off of him.
Because they came up together as a tag
Yeah.
team when they were young boys.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
But he was the guy that was pushed to New Japan, wasn't he, or somewhere? He made it to like a Tokyo Dome or something. They were booking him as in other companies, but then I guess that fell through. Yeah.
I'm not really sure. You know, that Ito kid, you know, he's a loon.
Ah,
He's an absolute loon.
Well, he stayed with you for a while, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Hito did, yeah.
Yeah.
Hito, he was with me for 3 months,
At least.
something like that. Yeah, he eats a lot of food, smokes a lot of pot. You know, takes up a lot of room. But his wife's gorgeous. But but Ito, that kid. And Hito's a tough motherfucker. You know, after he broke his arm at it dislocated his elbow at the King of Death, he's like, I work next night.
Huh.
You know, and we were like, no, you ain't.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Talking about him and Necro.
Oh yeah, that's a good little story. We were all getting smoked up one night. We were fucking with Hito. That Necro was saying that, you know, he wanted to have sex with, you know, Hito's wife, and how beautiful Hito's wife was, and that Hito's wife was a better worker than him. And he goes, "Oh, that's true," you know, and stuff like that. And we just really got him fired up over things. And well, we were all stoned and stuff, and we forgot to tell Hito that it was a rib. And Hito and Necro were working the very next night, and we're in my office, and we hear this, pow, two. I mean, just nasty chair shots,
Right.
you know. And I look over at Corporal, and Corporal looks over at me. I said, "Do you remember to tell Hito that was a rib?"
Huh.
And he's like, "No, I thought you did, boss." And I was like, they beat the shit out of each other.
nice.
Necro came back and said, "I don't know what I did, but I was fighting for my life out there."
What about ICP? What are your thoughts on ICP?
You know, they love wrestling, but I think some of the things they do degrades it, and I think some of the things they do, kind of whores the boys. You know, but they've got an unbelievable dedicated following,
Oh yeah.
and you know, are they great wrestlers? No, they'll tell you the same. You know, are they great rappers? Fuck no. You know, they ain't that either. You know, but have they taken what is, you know, the notoriety and the fame they have and turned it into turning a few more people into wrestling? Yes, and that's cool. You know, but basically they're hardcore marks. They like hardcore wrestling. You know, those guys, they could definitely, you know, use some wrestling training. But do they need it? No, because people are going to come and see them, you know, perform, you know, no matter whether they get better at wrestling or not. You know, I took some heat for bringing those guys in, but I made money, and that's what it's about. You know, would I do it again? Yeah, you know, if I could guarantee that both of them would show up.
How did the whole angle with CZW come about, and what did you expect to come out of the angle?
The whole CZW angle was Mike Burns. He asked me, and of course, you know, if you don't know who Mike Burns is, he runs Smart Mark Video, and he had been doing my shows for, you know, however long, and he knew that, you know, that there was heat between me and John, and he was capable of squashing it.
What was the heat?
The heat was a long time ago. They had me scheduled after the scissor incident to come back with me and Axel against Lobo and Pondo, and I told them that I couldn't make it, and they, you know, went ahead and advertised me anyway for that same date, and then told the people that I no-showed. But you know, that's all squashed now. That's years ago when they were wherever that place in
Sewell.
Yeah, Sewell, New Jersey. You know, but we hadn't spoken to each other or anything since that time. And Mike thought it would be really good for the fans, you know, if they got to, you know, if they got to, see something like that, and it was kept totally kayfabed.
Right.
I didn't tell Corporal and JC until the week before we were leaving that we were going there. Then I didn't even tell them what we were doing.
Huh.
That's why it came off so great, because there was no, lackeys or stoolies or anything like that to, tell that one person.
Right.
And Philadelphia, you tell one person, you might as well, just get on a bullhorn, and things didn't work out the way that I would have liked them to work out, but Mike had a great idea. I mean, he really, truly had a great idea, and this time this is his idea with IWA running the arena. Feels that it'll be great exposure for me. We're calling the card Something to Prove, because we've never been on the East Coast,
right.
As a full company, and though I've had my differences with John and stuff, I'm glad that he's open-minded enough to accept this idea as very good business for both companies and things like that. From that standpoint, you got to look at the guy as a genius, because a lot of guys can't swallow their ego, a lot of guys can't swallow their pride, and say, yeah, this is what's best for the fans, and this is what's best for my company, and it's what's best for this company, it's what's best for the business in general. And for that, I very much respect John Zandig, for being able to give in to his ego, and when Mike Burns came up with the idea of running the day-night doubleheader type thing, I was like, if you think it'll work, it worked the first time,
right?
Because I couldn't believe the response. That place almost rioted,
Right.
It was people showing legit emotion and hate, it was a really cool moment.
Did you have a problem, I guess, in your locker room with Nick Gage and Chris Hero or something like that?
To be honest with you, I really don't know what went on there, because it was King of the Deathmatch weekend,
right?
And I was so busy. It stems from the Hate Club eating Hero up at CZW,
right?
And let's face facts. A lot of guys, on the East Coast do not sell that well. They really don't. That's one of the biggest things when I watch shows on the East Coast and stuff like that I have a gripe about. Guys pop up from finishers and they just walk to the back after the match is over and stuff like that. And apparently, Hero was upset with Gage for not selling something along those lines. I don't know if there was a confrontation or anything else afterwards. Because I believe that was the second night of the King of the Death, and J.C. Bailey had broken my nose, my eyes were swelling shut, and like I said, besides all payouts and all that other stuff, there was a ton of shit going on. I heard that there was heat over it, but I somewhat guess it's got to be squashed now, because Hero's in CZW every time,
Right.
and Nick's a good guy, things like that, and then. I think it also stems from a little bit that, Justice Payne was supposed to come work for us and didn't. And he was supposed to work Hero, and, I think some people might have thought that, that was going to be a revenge situation, and it's not. I'm business. I don't do shit like that. I saw Justice Payne work Chris Candido in XPW and thought it was a very good match, and thought he could have a good match with Hero.
Right.
That's the only thought in my mind was,
What about your matches with Zandig? What are your memories of that?
I only really had 2 of them with him, and the exploding ball wire cage, which was the last one.
Right.
I was bitten by a brown recluse spider the week of that match. And I was sick as a dog. And I had a 103-degree fever. And literally, by the time I got back to Louisville, they told me I was 24 hours away from dying. I had a big knot going up the back of my neck. That's where I don't know if you can see it or not, but that's where the spider bit me.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wow.
That whole scar?
Yeah, that whole scar right there.
That's from the spider bite?
Yeah, that's from a spider bite. They
Holy
had
shit.
to take the whole thing out of my neck. and just leave a gaping hole that we just had to keep packing with gauze and stuff like that. So, I mean, if you watch the tape of it, you'll see that there's a bandage on it
Right.
as we go into the match. And, man, I'll be honest with you. We got up on top of that cage, and that thing was so rickety.
Right.
You know, I was like, oh, God, John, please take care of me. You know, and because all I could see is, like, that thing just going backwards. And the two of us, you know, because he was going for that finish deal. And, you know, only thing I was really wasn't happy about it is, you know, I thought we were both going off of it.
Right.
And I just wound up going off of it. You know, but, I mean, he's a tough motherfucker to do some dangerous shit. You know, and I think he's a lot like me from the aspect that he won't ask anybody to do something that he wouldn't do. You know, and, you know, I just really don't think we meshed well together, though. You know, I don't know why. You know,
What led to the angle ending?
I think he just thought it was, you know, a good time to end it. Personally, I would have ended it in a cage of death. You know, I would have took it right out of the summer, brought in some of the, you know, the technical wrestling guys,
Right.
and stuff like that, and you know, and would have done, you know, the big cage of death thing with, you know, 5 of the IWA hardcore guys, you know, against 5 of his hardcore guys in a cage of death, you know. But I think he just thought it was time to end it and go into the stuff with, you know, I think it was High Five or something like that, you know, at that time.
Right.
So, you know, it's his company, his decision.
What are your thoughts on B.J. Whitmer and like Balls Mahoney?
Boy, you talk about night and day there. BJ is a great worker as far as I'm concerned. He is a fantastic worker that just needs some charisma, you know. And
He's working the singing voice.
and you know, I told him, I said, you know, I'd like to see you be BJ the Body Whitmer, you know. So they're like some boas and some big sunglasses and stuff like that. But I still ain't been able to talk him into it. So if that comes out of an IWA show, you'll eventually know that I got my way. Balls is a guy that, you know, can really, you know, he's one of the guys that has a stigma on him that, you know, he can't work, and he can. You know, he can have a good match with anybody, you know, and, you know, do anything ask of you, you know. I just think, and hope and pray to God that, you know.
I think promoters just fear him because he's out of control. They think he's out of control, like in the back and everything.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I wish, you know, he would learn to tone down some of his personal demons, you know, at least while you're at the show. You know, I've had problems with Balls with drinking and stuff at shows, you know. You know, my wife almost sent him home one time. You know, I mean, you know, he does need to, you know. One of the funniest things is Chris Candido said to me one time, he said he never realized how fucked up he was until one time he looked at Balls at a show. You know? And I said, well, you know, yeah, I can see that. He goes, you know, but, you know, Chris said to me, I never realized how bad of shape you have to be that you can't go that 3 or 4 hours,
Just to,
you know, without,
right.
you know, and I wish Balls would understand that, you know, that's awful hard on a promoter, you know, it's awful hard on somebody that's your buddy, you know, that don't want to tell you, you know, what you have to do and what you can't do, but when you're not responsible enough to do it yourself, you know, and you have to be told when you're messing with somebody else's livelihood, you know. We had to tell the Highland building that we wouldn't bring them back, you know, to keep the building dead. So and that's eventually what we lost the building over was alcohol stuff.
Right.
You know.
Is that with fans?
Mm-hmm.
What happened with CM Punk backing out of doing commentary, I guess, for you guys for King of Death matches a year or so ago?
What do you mean?
Somebody said that he didn't want to do commentary or something for you guys?
No, he loves to do commentary. To hell, half the time we gotta beat him down to keep him from doing commentary. One of the funniest things I just seen recently is El Generico came out to the ole ole, and Punk's in the background doing the Paul Orndorff like he's gonna give him a pile driver and stuff, and jumping up and down at the commentator table and stuff. You know, you just. You know as well as I do. You put a live microphone in front of Punk's hands, you never know what you're going to get out of him.
Exactly.
You never know. I mean, at King of Death Matches a couple years ago, he just, you know, he shits on the deathmatch wrestling. You know, that's, you know, that's just him, you know.
Did it bother you when we first started running shows that we got a lot of credit, I guess, for some of the talent that you actually started and exposed?
Yes, yes, it did. It because I knew what you guys were doing. You guys were, even Gabe's told me you were watching tapes and
Right.
and seeing what I was developing and and saying hey, we're going to expose people to this. I look at it as either you or whoever's running that has more money than me, and if it gets my guys who have worked their asses off and took shitty paydays and stuff like that for more money and more exposure, then that's what I'm working for. That's what I want.
Do you think if your company was in a different area, you would be if you were up here, you would have been the next thing, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's location's everything. Whether it's you're selling T-shirts or you're selling roses on the side of the road, your location means everything. The thing that bothered me was the fans don't give me the credit.
I was going to ask you. Jess McGrath actually wrote something one time. He said Mid-South is the best shows on the Indies, but nobody knows about it.
Right. But what I'm saying is that the fans, you give me the money that's been spent in Ring of Honor, and Ray Charles could book them shows. I mean those shows book themselves. I do the most, and not to brag on myself here, but I do the most with the least. I mean. Every fucking night we run a show and we bring in name after name after name. I'm just rolling a dice. I'm taking a chance.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times Mike Burns has sent me a Smart Mark video check, and I ran one show and poof, it's gone. I mean it's gone.
Right.
And they're not small checks either. And I'm like, fuck. Where am I paying rent at? I mean, I'm talking about my household expenses. Because it's gone. And what I would like is just people to give me, that little bit of, respect that, I have created some very good wrestlers, and that is what I care about, is the fact that I want to better the business, guys are like, oh, Ian's not good at finishing off his angles. That's because everybody leaves. If I had the money, like I was saying, that is involved with Ring of Honor, I don't have to worry about guys going, I got another date, where I can go and make 4 times the amount of money that I'm making for you. I don't have to worry about that, so I can continuously run my angles.
Right.
Hell, I think that's what makes me is my ability to get kicked in the balls, get back up, and figure out what the hell I'm going to do next, and go on from there. It's very hard when you can't keep the guys booked the way you would like to. The run dependable storylines. It's like a lot of people don't understand. A lot of times, I'll put myself in a situation because I know I'm going to be there.
Right.
I know I'm going to be dependable. And whether fucking internet marks like me or not, the people who come to the shows do. So they're going to care about me. And up until recently, I had never ever brought in any name to work me. Now, how many promoters can say that they ran shows for 9 years that are wrestlers, and never brought in names for them? Yeah, I brought in Dusty Rhodes for me, and I brought in. People think I brought in Terry Funk for me, but I didn't. I brought Terry Funk in for Chris Candido.
Right. How are those guys like to work with?
Oh. Dusty came in and worked his ass off. Did the Ricky Morton roll, everything. Made the hot tag to me. Bled all over the place. And then when Funk come in, he wanted to know what Dusty did. He asked Jim Fannin what Dusty did to earn his money.
Huh.
And Jim said, oh, he did this and that and that and this and that. Funk goes, now I know what I have to do. we couldn't get that man out of the ring. every time I turned around, he was in the ring. Next thing I know, he's hitting Chris with a full trash bag, like he has the bag like it would be like Santa Claus carrying it, and he hits Chris with the trash bag so hard that the trash bag literally rips and wraps around Chris's head, you know. And I mean, he just went out there and worked his ass off, and you know, of course we had Terry in for First Eddie Gilbert Memorial, and he worked Doug Gilbert, and absolute pleasure to have around, and there's not many more people that I have more respect for than Mick Foley and Terry Funk in this business, and a lot of people shit on Dusty for his booking, but I don't love Dusty for his booking. I love Dusty for the Meccan Dream.
Right.
I love Dusty for the ability to cut a promo and pull you through the television set into the arena. When I was a kid, I felt if Dusty lost the match and I wasn't there, it was my damn fault. That's what I love the Dream for. I don't love the Dream for booking. I love the Dream for the talent and the ability. Who did more with less than Dusty Rhodes? He didn't have the body of a Flair. He didn't have the body of Hogan. He got on the TV and he talked, and he told the people that he needed them. That was the thing. That was one of the biggest things I learned. Is when you tell the people that they're a part of you, they're an extension of you. They're going to want to be there and support you.
What's the scariest moment you ever had in the ring? Like you thought, like, oh my god, I might die or something. Like
scariest moment I've ever had in the ring.
And what scariest moment you saw?
The scariest moment I've ever saw in the ring is Necro's arm.
Okay.
I mean that Necro's arm along with Corporal's head. Corporal's head really scared me bad because
that was a while ago.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's even no footage of it really. But I mean, he cut the temple and cut the artery in it, and I mean, a kid in the third row was covered in blood. I mean, it was spraying that far. I was putting my hand.
Happen?
I was putting my. He was laying on the ground, and I hit him with a plate glass, piece of plate glass with light tubes on it, and I hit him in the back, and the glass bounced up off the floor, and caught him back on the way up, and cut the temple, and I mean, it was just pouring out. And Necro's arm, when I pulled down his elbow pad, I was bitten by a dog when I was 5 years old. I had 104 stitches put in my arm, and my mother always refers to it as it looked like ground beef was hanging off the sides of my arm, and I had to have 18 hours of surgery total to put my arm back together, and that was the first thing I thought of when I pulled Necro's elbow pad down and saw just, I mean, meat just hanging, I mean, just hanging. Yeah, Mitch Page's head was real bad too.
Well, there's the one video with you like a long time ago, like in the beginning. I think it was Mitch Page, maybe. Even your wife came to the ring.
Yeah.
Who was that against?
I
forget who. That was pretty.
With Ian bleeding.
Yeah.
April Bloodshowers against Kip Morris.
That's right. That was pretty.
Yeah, that's probably the point that I thought I was actually going to bleed to death.
Right.
Because I mean, it was pouring out of me like chocolate syrup. I mean, it looked like chocolate syrup was pouring out of my head. Mitch Page's was rough when he got Pondo hit him with a grandfather clock, and it split his head like this, and it fell down where it looked like his ear was hanging.
Yeah.
And I mean, I literally had to take Mitch's head and fold it back up, on top of his head, and then put ice on his arteries and stuff. And they said if we wouldn't have done that, he'd have bled to death. I got to the hospital an hour and a half later after they had gotten there, after everything was done and stuff. And I got to the hospital to go check on him, and they were still cleaning out the ambulance. I mean, it just looked like the footage in Psycho with the blood just pouring down it. Yeah, but April Bloodshowers '97. I definitely would say was one of the worst juice jobs I had going on. As I went to juice, and Kip Morris kicked me in the back of the head, and when he did, it just And then Bull hits me with a chair shot and fillets it open even again. And, you know, I mean, it was just, yeah, that was the time that I thought I would bleed to death. But two other bad times was we were Mid-American Wrestling, and Corporal jumped off a balcony and gave me like a double foot stomp through a table, and it was 18 feet in the air, and he hit me right on my hip and blew my hip out, and man, that was excruciating pain. And another time, also involving with Corporal Robinson, we went for the Rana off the top rope through a table on the floor, but when he went over, he knocked the table over, so I'm in midair with nothing to land on. And
Splat.
Yeah, and blew my shoulder out, and you know, hit nothing but concrete. But I don't think there's ever been, you know, scary time in Mid-American Wrestling. I got my finger cut real bad here, and I could see the tendon and stuff hanging in it.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I thought I was going to lose my finger. You know, we were doing exploding barbed wire with me and a guy named Hardcore Craig, and I thought I was going to lose my finger. That was kind of frightening for me, to lose a digit, you know. But they sewed it all back on and stuff, and that worked out.
Speaking of Mitch Page, what was I don't know if you know, what's the deal with him and Zandig in Japan? Didn't like Zandig beat him up on the bus or something? Because they were when CZW first came in, wasn't there a big confrontation? Or
Zandig didn't beat him up on the bus. Mitch broke his jaw right before he went to Japan,
mm-hmm.
and they wired his jaw shut.
Mm-hmm.
And Mitch's side of the story is, and I don't have Zandig's side of the story, is that Zandig hit him in the jaw while his jaw was wired shut, and that there was a confrontation, but I don't think it actually came to blows.
Right.
But that also led to Mitch not going back to Japan, with John having some pull over there.
What's your memories of XPW? And how did you feel when they called IWA Mid-South a developmental territory?
The funny thing is the developmental territory didn't bother me as much as if they would have asked me if they could have said that, because I thought we were supposed to be like a sister promotion, like type thing, a brother promotion, whatever you want to call it, and XPW, Kevin Kleinrock's always been, all right with me. I kind of thought Rob Black was a little weird. I just thought Lizzie Borden was an absolute sweetheart. I don't think that, when it comes to the upper echelons of deathmatch workers, I don't think Supreme's in that upper echelon. And that was the best they had. I felt when I worked Supreme, I made him look like $1 million. And
do you think the only reason they had success out there is because they were the only company?
Yes.
And nobody's ever seen it?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. I think one of the biggest biggest problems with XPW had a lot to do with Shane booking. Don't get me wrong, I think Shane's a good worker. I just don't think you wrap a company around him.
And he booked around him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who do you think is the best indie worker out there? That
AJ Styles.
No, that nobody knows about. Yeah, no. And not even like a hero, because everybody knows hero. Not that didn't make it that nobody knows about. Like you would say his name, people would, huh? Even the smarter friends.
The young upcoming kid is Brandon Tomaselli.
Mm-hmm.
That's out there that nobody's heard of. Damn, I don't know that nobody's heard of, because
I think Matt Seidel's like the next one to break to get like that national.
Actually, I think Delirious is better than Seidel.
Okay.
But that's just my opinion.
Do you think the gimmick's going to hold him back though?
The gimmick's great.
If you go on a bigger level,
but if you let him go with that gimmick, he would be absolutely incredible. Delirious is a better worker psychology wise. You know, Matt's still learning, and hell, I've given him 3 matches with AJ Styles.
Right.
You know, but Matt still got the frame of mind of he likes what he likes, and he likes flippy shit. You know,
Right.
you know. So sometimes we go with that, and then sometimes we try to slow him down a little
Right.
bit. You know, but I really think Brandon Tomaselli is going to be a breakout star.
Who do you think is the most overrated indie
Most
worker?
overrated indie worker, low key. By far. By bazillions of far. That motherfucker couldn't spell psychology if you gave him a dictionary and pointed it out to him.
Who did you see through the years that you thought, this guy is a can't miss, he's going to be a star, and just didn't make it? Not, I don't know, just bad breaks, or not because of his own personal ability. He just didn't make it. And just you would have bet the farm he was going to be like a breakthrough major star, and never made it. And is that out of the business, or could be even somebody from back, earlier. Not somebody you promoted. Just
Well, I really I really thought that Doug Gilbert was going to be something. I mean, hell, second generation. He had every opportunity to learn from Eddie, and he was a bigger guy. He was taller,
right.
stuff like that. Could cut a pretty good promo. And then I really thought with the Memphis connection that they would take him.
He was versatile too, because
Yeah.
he did all that stuff in Japan
Yeah.
with the mask and all
Yeah,
that.
and he did it for me too.
Mhm.
I really thought Doug at one point was but Doug didn't develop his talent. He didn't. He really rested on I'm a Gilbert, and
That's it.
that's it. And I think that's why he missed.
Right.
One
What's your thoughts on Sabu?
of the greatest individuals I've ever met in my entire life. A lot of people probably have a lot of things to say about Sabu, but the biggest thing I can say about Sabu is if there was more Sabus in the wrestling business, it'd be a whole lot better off.
Not even in ring.
Not,
About what he does for everybody.
Yes.
How he takes
Yes.
care of everybody.
Yes, yes. Remember, Rob Van Dam, you don't exist without Sabu. you don't exist without Jerry Lynn. And that's one of the things that bothers me is people that forget, what other people have done for them. Even
Nor does his comic book shop.
Yeah,
You heard about that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying Sabu is an incredible all-around individual that I've called up and said I need help, I need a favor. How much can you do this for? Well, just give me gas money or whatever, and get back to me later. And he would probably be pissed at me for saying that, but people should know the individual that he is. They really should, because people give him shit about missing shows and stuff like that. When you do what you do to your body, like he does, and you have an opportunity to make $10,000 or you have an opportunity to make $1,000. I know it's not all about money, but when it comes down to him, he needs to make as much of it as he can in the short period of time that he can.
Right.
Because eventually it's gone. And people should know. I mean, he's no-showed me for those reasons, but I never hold him against it. I never, ever would hold that against him. And he's just an incredible individual that cares about the wrestling business and cares about the people in it. And if he likes you, you got it made. If you don't, well, just stay away from him. Because I don't want you being one of the assholes that goes ahead and runs your mouth and says Sabu's bitter or this or that. Just shut the fuck up because you don't know him.
Do you think a territory can be run successful today?
Yes. And by God, I'm either going to go broke trying or get it done.
Do you feel slighted not being a part of either the two ECW shows coming up?
Do I feel slighted? Yeah. Do I care? No. Because the whole fact of the matter is I know what I did. I know me and Axel were Pro Wrestling Illustrated Feud of the Year. Yeah, and we all know that's all work and all that shit. But the fact of the matter is, a national magazine, the biggest national magazine, thought enough of us and what we did that they could get away with making that Feud of the Year, and it was a work. You know, that's saying something. You know, if you know, to be perfectly honest with you, you know, I did, and Axel did what we did, and you know, the fans are never going to forget about it. So I don't need reunion shows or anything like that. The only thing that I can say is to those who are running it, you're missing out. You know, I mean, look when the Rise and Fall DVD came out. You know, what was the first thing that hit the internet that people said? They fucked up. They missed one of the biggest parts of the history of ECW. You know, and if you don't want to recall one of the biggest parts of the history of ECW, then that's fine with me also. But the fact of the matter is, whether they use me for it or not, that they can never deny the history of it. Because there was a time that we were in all the magazines all the time, and we were what people bought tickets to see. The show that was called Return of the Funker wasn't selling shit worth of tickets until Paul Lee went out and announced there was going to be a barbed wire bat match, and it was going to be between Axel and Ian Rotten. And we went out there and we hit a home run, pardon the pun, with that. So I don't really need that notoriety. As far as I'm concerned, they're missing the boat. I'm in better shape than I was in ECW. I'm a better worker than when I was in ECW now. Whether it was putting me and Axel against each other or me and Axel together against Tracy and Guido or whatever, and so on and so on. We could tear down the house. So.
Was there any matches you were close to booking in the IWA that fell through, like that the fans wouldn't know about, that you were disappointed, that you wanted to have, that just never happened?
I almost had Mike Quackenbush against Super Crazy booked, and I thought that was going to be a very, very, very good match, and that didn't come off. And that was just recently, I tried my damnedest to get that to come off, and it didn't. And the other thing that was part of what I'd like to try to do is eventually I'd like to put Sabu and Pondo in the same ring. I think that would be a unique thing.
So your thoughts on backyard wrestling?
The biggest problem with backyard wrestling is they don't have a respect for us pros because they think they already know everything. So, if they would go out and just have respect instead of saying, oh, I can do this and I can do that, and going to shows and trying to be the show and stuff like that. Have fun in your little backyard. You think that's, you're the shit in your world, but don't come diss guys that've been trained and, have paid their dues and things like that. That's the big, and I'm not saying all backyard wrestling guys are like that, but they all think, because they can do a moonsault, that they're the end all be all things, and that's not necessarily true. And they rub a lot of people the wrong way with that aspect. I mean, I started out in the backyard, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to take that next step to be a pro, don't diss a pro or anything like that. Get trained.
What's your all-time favorite match?
I like.
You can only pick one.
I can only pick one.
Okay, 3.
Okay.
You're a great negotiator.
Okay, I'll do it this way. My favorite death match is King of the Death Matches the last year, Necro Butcher versus Toby Klein. My favorite technical match, there's 2 of them, but they kind of involve the same people, was the final of the Ted Petty from last year with
Joe,
AJ Styles. Yeah, that ranks up there. and since Rob ain't in the room, I'll go ahead and say this: Punk and Samoa Joe from Chicago, the 60-minute draw they did there, I just thought was absolutely phenomenal. Fantastic match.
Favorite match involving you?
Favorite match involving me? I think it would be, I guess we went about 45 minutes. It was on the Eyes Wide Open tape, I believe, with me, Cash Flow, and Chris Hero in a three-way. Is probably one of my all-time favorites. But I gotta say, from my Mark aspect, favorite as far as fun-wise is concerned is teaming with Dusty. Nothing beats that. I mean, Candido was saying I was just bleeding buckets and everything, but I still had a smile on my face.
Right.
he said it just, I was defeating the purpose because I was gushing blood and everything else. I mean, of course I'm in a ring with Dusty. I'm gonna hit it big time. And but Candido was like, would you stop smiling?
Just to wrap it up here, is there anything you'd like to say in closing to your fans out there?
Just to support the indies, whether, it's going to shows or, buying tapes from, you guys, or buying tapes from Smart Mark, or, guys that have the rights to sell shit, you support the indie groups and keep them alive, because our main source of money is merchandise. If you don't support it and show that you're like a federation, whether you're buying a T-shirt or you're buying a tape or taking that DVD and turning somebody else onto it, it's like the bumper sticker I have. Turn somebody on to David Allen Co. Turn somebody on to independent wrestling. I mean, so many people just think there's those three letters out there, WWE. That's all they think of. And guys like you and Rob and Mike and Glenn and Gary and stuff and over at Smart Mark, you guys are busting your asses and getting on planes and driving in cars and stuff like that. Yeah, you're making money, but it also helps for more and more people to see, what's out there, because if it wasn't for the deal I have with Smart Mark Video, I don't think I'd be in business anymore. I don't think I'd be in business anymore. And you guys have helped me out of a bind here and there, with buying stuff. So like I said, support the indies, because that's the only place where guys are doing it for the love, because they definitely ain't making a ton of money.
Well, we're glad you're here and did the show with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.